Convene as a regular council meeting for our city council meeting starting at 6:18. Roll call, please.
Mr. Simmons?
Here.
Mr. Buttacavoli?
Here.
Ms. McKinley? Here. Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Samayoa?
Here. At this point, I'd like to ask everyone to stand, please, and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to ask our city manager if there are any changes to the agenda.
There are none.
If that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Simmons, second by Vice Mayor. All's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved with a vote of 5-0. We have one presentation from Chief Carlin, Fire Recovery Cost Recovery Program for the Fire Department. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm here from Fire Recovery USA, have Mike Rivera. He has a presentation to give out to you folks. It's in reference to cost recovery for incidents that we respond to. And he's been here before. They solicited in Marysville several years ago, and it never really took action on it. So they're back. I've met with Mike and the company, and so we're one of the vendors that are pretty well known through California and through the United States. As we thought it'd be a benefit to a great and do presentation so we can look at another option for recovery and some more funding that comes into our earnings. That will use Mike.
Hello, my name is Mike Rivera. I'm with Fire Recovery USA. We are a national company. We are headquartered in Roseville, so we're local to you. We have over 1,100 cities and fire departments in 42 states that use our services, and it's basically the same service I'm going to explain here for you. Let me see if I assume this. Aha. So what we do is we offer cost recovery programs to cities and fire departments, a variety of different types. Tonight, we're just going to talk about the first one, which is the Emergency Response Cost Recovery Program. The other ones are just different things that you can do down the road. What this is that you're already providing a service mitigating various incidences that are covered under insurance. And so, let me show you the next slide. So what you're doing, what most cities are doing, is that they're struggling sometimes with the cost of these services. As costs are going up, most cities do not want to increase taxes to cover these costs. They're looking for new streams of revenue to help keep the fire department either in the black or not getting too deep into the red. And so one measure is basically to file claims against the at-fault responsible party's insurance if it's covered. So the basis for this is this. Everybody in their insurance, well, if you're driving legally, by law, you must have car insurance. Your insurance will cover a lot of the costs associated with mitigating certain types of incidents. If you don't bill them, basically the insurance will just retain the money. So what you have is that you have all of your residents that are paying in their monthly premiums. Part of that is set aside by the insurance to reimburse you for your services. So if you don't bill it, basically that your residents are paying twice. They're paying in their monthly premiums, and they're also paying their taxes for the same service. By billing the insurance, you're helping to defray some of those costs. It's covered. We have we quote a 70% collection rate, but that's pretty conservative. We have a lot of our departments that are 80, 90, and 100% collection rate. So, we've been doing this for well over 12 years. In fact, cost recovery billing's been going on for over 30 years. It's kind of like where ambulance billing was a long time ago. It was covered by, just the cities and taxes, and then insurance picked it up, and that's how it is with cost recovery. It's just kind of the wave of where everything's moving. So this way, you're only forcing your residents to basically cover this cost once. Their insurance will not go up by insurance law. It may go up because they got in an accident. It may go up because they hit a tree, but it's not going to go up because there's an additional bill from the fire department. It just doesn't work that way. So the types of things that you can bill, and by the way, we customize this for what you want to do. So we work for you. You don't have to bill for all these things, but this is the types of things that you can bill for, and this is what most of our cities bill for. Motor vehicle incidents. So where it really triggers a bill is if there's fluids on the ground, because that's hazardous material and by law must be mitigated. And that is covered by insurance under property damage. So when there's fluids on the ground, which is about half of the runs, you're going to get almost guaranteed a payment there. For if there's just you're arriving, you're directing traffic, cleaning up, that type of thing, that's not covered by a lot of insurance. It's about 30% of the insurance covers that. It's usually for newer cars, we're comprehensive, but every liability policy covers for fluids on the ground. Vehicle fires, same type of thing. If it's a newer car, it's going to have coverage. If it's an older car, it's probably not, so that's not going to be good. Structure fires, virtually, unless your home is paid off and you don't have insurance on it, every structure, commercial or private, if you're paying a mortgage on it, is going to have fire insurance, and there's a specific amount set aside in the policy. If you don't bill it, which a lot of fire departments do, the insurance company very happily keeps your money. Marine and water incidents, same thing as car insurance, boats and so on, most of those are insured and you have coverage for that. Hazmat calls, you're probably already billing for hazmat, I'm guessing you do, but we collect everything, we collected for a small town about 2 months ago, $70,000 claim for hazmat. It would have bankrupted the city, that little city, because it was like a week-long spill cleanup and they didn't have the money to cover it, and so this kept them alive. And then special rescue, over the sides, woodland, that type of thing. If there's insurance for it, a lot of people have umbrella policies or specific policies for that, so that can also be covered. You get to choose, though, when you submit runs, you can decide, oh, we're going to bill for this, we're not going to bill for that. There'll be certain situations where, you can make adjustments that way. So we took a look at your run data. Well, we were here about 10 years ago, and we looked at it, but your run data hasn't changed too much in the last 10 years. It's about the same. Based on a very conservative collection, 70% collection rate, we're probably looking about $100,000 a year back to the city, and that's net. That's after our fee. And by the way, just since I brought up fees, how our fee works is that everything we collect, there's no cost to you to set it up, to start, there's no software to buy. It's a 20-80 split. So we average about $500 net back to the fire departments per billable run. That's just our national average. Now, of course, some runs, like that $70,000 run's a lot higher. A lot of them are a lot lower. The 20% might sound high, but keep in mind, the average run, we're going to make about $100 on the average claim. This isn't like medical billing where you submit a claim, you fill out the papers correctly, and 4 months later you get a check. The insurance companies basically deny almost every claim we submit, and we have to fight to get you paid. But we get you paid because it's in their policy. Oops, sorry. And so on our average, our share is about $100. Our cost to collect is about $80. So we're making about $20 on these. So it's not like this is a huge profit center, but sometimes people see 20% and they think, oh my goodness, it's so much. There's a lot of work involved to get these things paid. But so that's how that works. I don't know if you're interested or not to see the breakdown, but I thought I'd put it in here just so you can see MVA, motor vehicle accidents. If there's fluids on the ground, we have about a 90% collection rate on those. It's actually higher, but I'd rather overperform. So you're going to get there's about almost $37,000 there. No fluids on the ground is more like 12. Vehicle fires. I didn't include some things you can bill for. I just used actual data that we had at hand. Fires, hazmat calls, and so on. There's about 126,000 gross collected, and your share would be about 101,000. That's based on a very conservative collection rate. It could be higher than that. It could be lower. It also depends on the demographics in your city. I don't know what your percentage of people that drive uninsured and so on. And this is probably more important to the chief, but just so you understand how it works, you're already doing the work. So there's no additional labor to do this. You're already collecting the data, and you're actually already inputting it into what you call, it's called an RMS software system, which you track every run the fire department does. You're already getting the data. Your software talks to our software. You're using emergency reporting, which is I think, the best software out there. It's a big national company. We're the big player on our side, and they have a link directly to us. So there's going to be no more incurred labor. It's just a simple matter of you deciding to do this. The data transfers to our system. You still control it. We don't ever auto-bill anybody. You're still going to have somebody on the fire side that's going to log into our software and to say, yeah, that's billable, no, that's not. Takes a minute or two per run. You don't do that many runs. You're talking about 10 minutes a week to do the actual work involved. When you get back to the station, you basically, the fire personnel will input it into emergency reporting, and then it comes to our side. Did I press the wrong button? So we get the run, we submit a claim, we determine, working with the insurance companies, the responsible party. Only the responsible party is billed, of course. If there's only one person involved, they're the responsible party. 2 or more, the insurance companies have to pay each other, so they will determine responsible party, so they can pay each other based on the police reports, talking with the people involved, and so on. Basically, we collect all the money, and then on the first week of each month, we send out 1,100 plus checks to all of our clients for all the money we collected the prior billing month minus our 20% fee. Our system, by the way, it's live 24/7. You can have access to it. There's various levels of access, so you might have line level people who are just inputting data or checking data, all the way up to administrative and chief level, where you can see all the money side of it, the reports, and it is live 24/7. Literally, if you're looking at it and somebody made a note on our side, it would just appear on your screen, and you can access this from anywhere in the world as long as you have internet access. It's just you just need any browser to access our system as long as you have your password credentials. These are our California clients. I just threw this together today. We've got 94 as of today, and it's growing. We add several clients every week. It's just, like I said, we have 1,100 clients and growing. This is nothing new. It's just kind of where things are going. So we just wanted to present this to you, and it's really that simple. Why us? Well, we're the largest in the nation. We have the highest collection rate in the nation. In fact, the 2 other major players are now gone. We've kind of taken them over. There's a couple mom and pops that do billing, but their collection rates are very low. There's no other cost to our service. It's just if we don't collect, we don't get paid. We don't require you to purchase anything. It's just, we just do our job and get you done. And that's it.
Questions?
Absolutely.
Question from board members? This seems like too good to be true, right? I mean, nothing should be that easy. Given that a lot of our accidents happen in a state highway, does that limit our ability to recover because that's a different jurisdiction, the state highway system?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not magic. It's not like we're printing money for you. It's just that, the insurance industry, and I'm not going to speak bad about it, but they've built this into their policies, and they've got people to pay it. But people aren't billing it, and it's just been, this is one of the reasons why insurance is one of the top 5 industries profit-wise in the world. So, but we've recognized this, and we didn't come up with this idea. This isn't our idea. It was going on since I was, a young man. It's just that we have streamlined it to the point where cities try to bill on their own. They've done it before. But it's very expensive. You have to almost hire somebody to do this. Then if they deny the claim, you go to your attorney, he has to write letters. It gets to be very expensive to collect $400 or $500. You just expended $2,000. Well, so we do it on a scope of scale. We have in Roseville a processing center with just rows of people on headsets, and we're basically insurance adjusters. And so when they deny it, we can go and look at the policy and say, no. Here's, and they push it, they try and push it out. It's about 90 days to get you paid, because how insurance companies make money is they invest the premiums in interest-bearing accounts. So even though they know they're going to pay us, they know who we are, they deny it, they play it, they want to make sure that they can make as much money on those premiums as they can, and then they eventually pay us, and then we pay you.
Any other questions from board members?
So through the chair, clarification. I'm sorry, Steph.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to ask.
You're saying this only bills the insurance companies. This never goes back to the building owners or anything of that sort?
It's up to you. So we have about half of our clients only bill insurance. Their feeling is, if somebody can't afford insurance, doesn't have insurance, just stop billing there. The other half say, well, why are we giving preferential treatment to people driving illegally? So that you can decide if you want to bill people without insurance.
So, I mean, I saw that you said you bill for alarms, false alarms.
We
Active
can.
alarms.
This isn't part of this program. We do have a false alarm.
Right, I saw that, I read that, so that's not what we're talking here, then never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, if there's no objections from any other council members, I'd like to ask staff to kind of dig a little bit further and find out and maybe bring a proposal back.
We actually were hoping that we would have a positive response from the council this evening, and that in that case, if there was, we'd like to bring it back as part of the final budget, if that's amenable to the council.
There wasn't any negative comments.
Exactly, so that's what I'm thinking we'd like to do.
Well, I guess I would be a little bit skeptical to put $100,000 in our new budget. I guess I don't want to count chickens yet, so I think, I don't want to, that seems a little rapid, a little fast.
So would you suggest just approving, actually going through the process, but not actually budgeting for it, kind of like what we did with the cannabis last year?
I think that would be prudent, just because we've never done it before.
Okay.
Can
We
I
can
just say
do
something
that.
and speak to that real quick? I don't mean to interrupt, but I've done this so many, I've been doing this for a long time. It's very prudent not to put this in your budget just yet. Only reason is that there's a ramp up. You know, the guys have to get trained on, you know, make sure they're collecting the data and we're getting it. There's a 90-plus day for insurance to turn around and get money flowing. So if your budget's starting in 6 months, you're not going to be hitting those $8,000 a month and probably in the first 6 months. Probably towards the end of that 6-month period, you'll start to, the number will start to climb towards that. And it could be greater than that, but I just don't want you to count on, oh, you know, by August, we're going to be getting $8,000 a month. And it's going to take a little longer than that.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
You know, we have been on this now for about 1.5 years when we first brought it up. There's 2 fire chiefs who were working on this. It's come this far, and I'm definitely in support of this. I think we need to move on, give staff direction to go do diligence on it and get this thing going. It's been 2 years that I personally have been pushing this to get it to this point here, and I think it's time to move on with it.
So, question to the folks on the dais, are we talking about recovery of funds and that's going to be allocated to like general fund, or is it going to go department specific, or is it going to be spread out? I mean, it's an insurance recovery. How does that work?
Well, initially, if we go the route of not budgeting for it, it would go into the general fund, with the idea of kind of what we did this year with the cannabis money, which is basically it goes in there into the general fund, and then in the following year, we would budget for it and come back to the council with a recommendation. You know, there could, I mean, it's obviously it's the council's purview and discretion,
Sure.
but certainly I could see possibly the council being
Well, I think
inclined to
what-
put it towards the fire department.
Well, I think we
but-
just go with, for right now, go into it, go get it, get a contract going, and we'll see how it works. In the next year's budget, we'll figure out those questions.
Yeah, that's
agree
what
with
we would
that.
do, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry to say, nice.
Kill it.
Before you say, Marysville. Second ballot. Fire.
He's confusing. Walking in.
Fire base in Marysville.
Oh, yeah, our company's based first.
Yeah.
Is that what you asked?
Let's move to item 7, Community Consent Calendar Forum. We'd like to invite individuals wishing to address City Council concerning consent calendar items or matters not already in the agenda. We invite you to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes. When you're called, we ask you to please go to the podium and give your name clearly for audio recording. We request that you give your address. Do you address your comments to the council and not to the audience? We do let you know that by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. If you would like a response from the council, we'd like you to please fill out a speaker's card and you'll be contacted within the next few days. Members of the public, hi.
Hi, my name is Maribel Caney. I live in 1021 F Street. A 2-hour parking sign was placed in front of my house due to parking issues. That did stop the parking issues. The only thing was that now I have to move my car every 2 hours. So I'm requesting from the council to purchase a long-time permit or an approval for exemption from time limits. That's all.
Make sure you write your name down and your address
Yes.
on the speaker's card. Thank you. Trying to think where 1021 F Street, 10th and F? Huh? She should, but that's why they'll follow up. They just put a 2-hour parking sign, and now she has to move her car a couple times, every couple hours. But if she lives there, I imagine that we can work with her,
Should be permitted.
depending on where she lives. But that's why I asked her to put her name down, and staff will follow up with her. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Judy Mann. I live here in Marysville, where Ellis Lake is practically my backyard, and I am blocks away from the Marysville Art Club. I am currently a board member and do the monthly history talks for the club. Our club has been in existence now for 106 years. Tonight, along with other members, we wish to voice our concerns about the homeless destroying our venue at 420 10th Street. On May 24th, I sent a letter to the Marysville Police Department stating the concerns we as a club had in reference to our building and the vandalism which has occurred. Each of you on the City Council got a copy of that letter. On May 27th, the Vice Mayor, Stephanie McKenzie, attended a board meeting and eased some of us of our concerns. She also showed sympathy in the encounters of what we've been facing, and she had many suggestions. That's why we're here tonight, to voice some of the concerns. On May 31st, an Officer Lee of the Marysville Police Department gave me a call. We talked in length, maybe about resolving some of the issues. Together, we talked about, number one, maybe having the police chief come to one of our board meetings and talk to us about maybe some of the updates, and not hearing the term, we can't do anything, maybe just with updates. So maybe help us start maybe some sort of neighborhood watch program. Number two, having coffee with the cop, maybe in our location by the lake, in our venue. Number three, to put on, be on the list of a national night out for this year's, I believe it's in August. We would like to be part of that. As far as a camera or an alarm system, that would be ideally. We cannot afford it. We feel that it will be destroyed, so maybe a fence option around the building is our next choice. This morning, a week later, I received an email from the chief stating that the police department has increased the patrol in our area and that he personally has patrolled the area himself. This is a good start for us. Over the past 2 years, the number of homeless individuals in our city has increased. The problem has become more visible, and it's more visible to us because they camp out on our front porch. Ellis Lake draws many, and our building is just steps away. I do tours frequently to bring visitors to our area, and the look of our community has been slowly declining. I sure want to start a tour on the homeless situation in our area. So I thank the Chief of Police for helping and directing us, and once again, in partnering with us. I really want to say thank you for all.
Thank you, Judy. Most of you here for the same issue?
Yes, we are the board of the
And so
Marysville Art Club.
I want to let you know that we did receive your letter,
That's
all of us,
good.
and we read it. Because each of you can take 3 minutes, that could be 30 minutes.
We have a lot of different issues, each of us.
Very good. Thank you.
Some of us are worth, okay. So I'm Charlene Gonder, and I'm the proud president of the Marysville Art Club. I've been president for 12 years. In the last 2 years, our whole problem has become horrible. Our club was started in 1913. We have been in this location since 1947. Never before have we had this problem since the last year. We are very worried that the homeless are going to destroy our building piece by piece. In the last year, the homeless problem and the increase of destruction to our building has increased unbearably. We have done everything the police have asked, and we're not saying we're against the police. They're really good at coming when we ask them to, but nothing has worked. We have continuously put locks on our dumpster. They break them off. We put locks on our electric outlets. They tear them off to use it for their free cell phones. We have put, I lost my place. We put locks on our breaker boxes, they tear them off. We put locks on our sprinkler system, they break them off. There is nothing we've been able to do. Our private property signs, they've torn them down. We have nothing, we have no way of getting around this. They're using our backyard as a public restroom, very hard on my landscaper. We've put light sensor lights on our porch, but because it disturbs them sleeping on our porch, they break them and tear them down. So you had a beautiful antique French doors. They've ruined them, and now we cannot replace them because they are antique doors. We put security doors on the outside. Now they're coming through our windows. So they break in, they sleep on our stage, they go into our restroom and go to the bathroom next to our toilet. We're not saying these people are just homeless. We know there's a lot of mental problems and other problems for them, but we need it to stop. So what we would like is, our biggest problem is that we rent our venue because we're a nonprofit. How am I supposed to assure our renters that this is a safe venue? How am I supposed to assure my members that they can come in and be safe haven? How am I supposed to assure my senior bridge group that it's okay that they can play cards even though there's someone urinating in the backyard? So how am I supposed to do this? You guys have got to come up with an answer for me. We've been here for 106 years. We are the historic Marysville Art Club. We want to continue in the safe, secure building. That's all we're asking. How are you going to assure me that we are safe? Please help us take our neighborhood back.
Thank you, ma'am. But that seemed to be the same issue as prior, so if we can keep two different issues, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Beverly Rose, and I am the head of the Art Club Bridge part. We have anywhere from 8 to 20 women come twice a month. Every time that I go down to set up, there's men laying. There's either 3 to 4 men every time, and we have to tell them to leave. They're even over in the, we have big camellia bushes, and they're over laying in there. They have been belligerent, and they're nasty. They've been in the garbage. I tell them to get out of the garbage, and so far I've number 1 for 3 times. They're terrible. They have a very bad attitude, and the only way I can get them out of there is our chief of police, Chris, and has sent his officers. This is ridiculous. Some of these women are in their 90s, and this is what is for them, for their social, and this is the only place they have since we don't have a senior center anymore. It is disgusting, and I would very much like to see this taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for listening to us. My name is Jan Thompson. I'm the fiscal officer for our club. And I can tell you about the fiscal cost that this is. We're a service organization, nonprofit. We do a lot for the town. We do a lot for the city. We are fighting for our very existence. I can tell you that. You own the land. We own the building. The city owns the land. We own the building.
Okay, thank you for that.
If we had some help with a fence around at least the back part of our building, if you could help us in any way to keep our renters safe, to keep us safe, I think that would really help us. I know it would. And I know that that's a money issue, but please think about this. We are fighting for our very existence. We've been here for 100 years, and that means a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Janie Hood, and I'm the first vice president of Marysville Art Club. I'm very proud to be a part of it, and I know that all of you are too, because you're on the Marysville City Council. We all exist because of the Marysville City Council. In 1913, we started the Packard Library, but we outgrew it. And who got us our building? The Marysville City Council. So I know that you're supportive of us, and you believe in what we do. We support the arts, in a creative arts of any kind. So I'm here because now you know all our problems and everything, and our answer lies with you. Our history is that the Marysville City Council supports us. You gave us our building, yes you did, 1922, you said, have this old building and have this money. I think it was W.T. Ellis, actually, that supported us with $16,000, which in that time was an enormous amount, but it started with the Marysville City Council. We come to you on bended knee tonight saying, please keep up your support of us because we're going down. Right now our money just goes to fix the broken parts of the building and the stolen parts. Please be with us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Kathy Vrablik. I'm actually not with the art club. I'm a neighbor. I'm a trustee at the Marysville Elks Lodge, and we have been dealing with vandalism, defecation, graffiti, things for easily. I've been a trustee for 9 years, and we've been dealing with it. It has gotten progressively worse and worse. We recently had our security cameras stolen, and then they came back and took the wires. Then they stripped all the wires out of our air conditioning condenser. The Elks Lodge is a very patriotic, community-based organization, also nonprofit. We do rentals and have the same problems with the dumpsters. I do have to say that recently, even in light of this new vandalism, I just want to give a big shout out to our police department. We have had wonderful response from them, especially with a certain few individuals that the police department were very aware of and knew, and they came and they have educated us also. And I just want to emphasize to the art club people, call on everything, even if you think it's something minor, because first of all, on D Street, the corner where the highway goes by, the lake has never looked better. Very good. And also, we are experiencing a little less, but I think it's because of the stepped-up patrols, and we just all have to work together on this. It's a situation that isn't going away, and it is too bad about the attitudes. I've been cussed out many times going in to set up for Sunday breakfast and asking them to get off our front porch, and I give them 3 times. Third time they don't leave, I call the police. So anyway, I just wanted to let Art Club know I'm very supportive. We will work together, and would like to join them in the National Night Out and get our neighborhood together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Rahul. My family and I own the property over here on 904 B Street.
Say that again, sir.
My name is Paul Rahul.
No, the address?
904 B Street, the old Cash One building, the historical building. We have a very similar problem, but my issue is we bought that building in 2008, my family and I, and one of the biggest reasons why we bought that building was we wanted to keep the money in the city of Marysville. Since that time, that building has been vacant, and now we are at the point of where we have to sell it because we cannot get it rented out due to the homeless issue. We had 3 companies that have come in and said no thank you because of the homeless. KFC, Burger I Am, and Popeyes. Or excuse me, it wasn't Popeyes, it was another vendor. Also, we have also had, my real estate agent has shown it to 7 different people, all of which have turned it down due to homeless in the last year. So at this point, I hate to see, and at that time when we purchased this building, we had numerous opportunities to take our money outside of Marysville. One reason why we chose it for here in Marysville, I grew up here. My dad came here in 1969 and has been in the farming community since 1975. That is how much history we have here. I graduated from Lyndhurst. My sisters graduated from Lyndhurst. We have been keeping our money here in the city of Marysville. But I'm coming to you guys because at this point, I don't know what else I can do. Yes, we can call the police, and yes, you guys do come out. But as soon as you guys walk out there, they come right back. So unless I sit out there 24/7, that's the only way I can get it. I also have the same problem as them, where they will come in, they will vandalize. They will break my outlet sockets, the locks. They will destroy locks. They have vandalized. I have gotten to the point to where I don't even put a lock on our garbage because they just break it. So at this point, we don't know what else to do. And unlike them, we are for profit. We invested our money into the city. We could have taken it to anywhere we wanted to, but we chose city because this is where we live. So I would like to see some help to help fix this issue. And we can't do it alone because we've been doing it alone for almost a year and a half. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Hi, good evening, City Council. I'm here tonight to ask you about the questions that I had presented to the board about 45 days ago. And the answers here, I'm appalled by the answers that you'd given me, and I've got them here so that you could read your answers. I asked you about the awning for Hollywood, for the REAP site over there where everybody's at. They consider it the sleep site. Well, you wrote me that the REAP site was moved during the high water. It wasn't even about the REAP site. It was about the cover that was over the REAP site, over the dumpsters. And you said you're going to determine the best foot forward or path forward. Well, I asked you also about the bathroom, and you give me an answer of the restrooms at the REAP site were moved due to high water concerns in May. Come on now, and then you said the location will be best determined by your best path forward. What is going on with that? What kind of answer is that? A work order has been issued to determine if the homeless meters can be fixed. 45 days ago. I mean, come on, that's one answer. And the garbage, okay? We've been on a garbage cleanup now for 45 days, probably almost 50 days. We haven't got one participant in the city of Yuba City or Marysville to even help out clean anything. And why Ellis Lake looks better is because the homeless union's been cleaning it up. And the monitor of the Hollywood Trailer Park, you said, is monitored daily or routinely, as you put. You haven't been out there in a year and a half. How routinely is that? You want garbage around? You're going to have garbage around. You want people going to the bathrooms? Have bathrooms around. I mean, it's just, these answers are from you. That's retarded answers. That's not even answers.
Sir, that's...
Well, retard, I'm a retard. Okay? I'm not speaking about them on an impersonal view. Just look it up in the dictionary. But that's still not answers I expect from the city council. I'd expect you to at least give me the common decency to answer something correctly.
Anyone else from the public like to comment?
My name's Valerie Tootle, and I own Tootle's Butcher Shop on 317 3rd Street. We've been there about 6 years now, going on 7. We came here, and we're really hoping for great things to happen here. And in the 6 years, it's just declined. There is a huge disconnect between the city and the businesses, the homeless. It's gotten worse. I want answers. All of our business owners in this city want answers. You send out people to fine us for having signs, to bring people into your city. Your city. We chose to come here. We chose to spend our money here. We chose to bring people here, but yet you're going to send people out to fine the businesses. You have homeless that defecate in our front of our property, in the back of our property. We put up a fence. They climb it. They get in our trash. So putting a fence around the arts, I'm sorry, ladies, that's just not going to work. They're going to climb it. They'll break it. They'll cut it. There is something that you guys have to do after all of these years, just sitting there looking at us and telling us, well, if you're just going to complain about the same thing, then, maybe you guys should get out of line. It is time for you guys to start doing something. We can't take it anymore. We really can't. I want to stay here. I want to be here. But to be completely honest, we may be leaving. I don't want to leave this place. I love this place. That's why we came. But I don't understand the blank looks on your face when you guys look at us and then no action. All we are is complainers to you. We complain. We call the police. They come out for the stupidest things because someone defecated in our back porch. They've got other things to do. But we need help from you guys. When are you guys going to start doing something actively? Actively doing something. Not just looking at us, not just hearing our complaints, not putting them to the side. When? When do we get some results? When do we get some help? You can't put it off on everybody else. On the police, they've got enough to do. You guys have got to make some active, no homeless during this time, or they have to continue to keep going during these times. Get out and walk it. Shoo them off yourselves. You guys are part of the city. They can't sit and lay around everywhere. We need help as businesses. We need help as owners in this city. We need help to bring more people into this city. People don't want to come. It's become the worst, and we have to fight it and explain to people why they should come, why they should spend their money here. Why do I need another beef? Why should I get another pig? Why should they come and shop in my store? Where does the help really, really start? Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wyatt Ellis. I'm not really personally involved in this situation, but I'm wondering if maybe there were porta potties or just cheap overheads or something, if there could be places that instead of just the police having to just tell people to go away from certain areas, they have somewhere to send them that overall may save the city more money in the long run. That probably won't be as expensive up front, but they could at least have somewhere to go so they're not defecating on people's back porches and whatever. And then it's called, you want an overhead, you don't want to be in the rain, you want whatever, go over to this devoted place we have for you. It's not like you have to give them I don't know how the expenses work. It'd be nice if we could just food and clothes. I know that's not possible, but at least if they had some kind of an alternative thing that would probably please everybody, may not cost a lot of money overall, just to get some kind of a cheap, anyway, I think you kind of understand what I'm getting at. Just you guys have more experience with everything than I do anyway, so just with the ideas. So thank you and good luck with everything.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public like to make a comment? I tend not to respond, I think, but given the amount of frustration that came forward, it's definitely a real frustration. I could tell you that we did increase the number of police officers in our department. We haven't hired them because they leave us, but we've been trying to keep our department as full as possible, so we can have people when there are calls. We did invest $15,000 of our monies to the Central Center, the Life Building Center over there at the old T. Matthews, where they built a centralized area where people can shower, do their clothes, get social services done. So that's been in place for the last couple of years. As you know, we actually passed an ordinance to change the zoning there so they can build some shelters so they don't have to sleep in our public property, and we can have places where they can be sent. So that's being worked on. Unfortunately, the city of Marysville, and I know the frustration is not going to stop. And I was just listening to Yuba City had a whole workshop on it, and it's online if you guys want to see it. But one of the lawyers kind of has some basic things to say, and unfortunately, there's pretty limited things that we can do because they are human beings and they do have rights, and they do have a right to use public. People can be frustrated for that, but that's the Constitution says that you can't do certain things to people, or you can't take their property. And that's just what our police department can do. Legally, through the Constitution, there's only certain things that they can do. There's only certain tools that we can do. We cannot fight poverty. We cannot create more affordable housings in our area. We not deal with mental health issues. We're a city that only has a certain amount of tools to deal with, and they're allowed to stay in a public space in a bench. Homeless, just because they're on shelter, doesn't mean that they're not allowed to, have a picnic in our lakes and our parks. But we have committed resources. We are working with the local nonprofits, with the local churches, with the county. They've done a tremendous job in coordinating regional support services, so we can get them housed, so we can get them shelter, so they can get a job, so they can get a training, they can get a vocational certification. Those pipelines are being built, and are being built through our efforts, through our chief of police, who's been dedicating a lot of his time through the Homeless Consortium, working with the churches and working with the nonprofits and working with the local governments to do that. Our legal department has worked with the other legal departments so that we can look at an overall ordinance that we can all work through. But because of court cases, of litigation, what judges are saying, we're fairly limited right now, and that shelters can be very helpful. So that's why this council was in favor in assuring that that shelter is being built so we can have additional beds, so then we don't have people sleeping in our public spaces, so they can have a place where they can have a shower, where they have a place to do their clothes, where they can get veteran services, or they can get some other services so they can get going. It is a structural issue that is a national problem. LA is spending $52 million on homelessness, and their count just went up by 12%. So no amount of money that cities are putting into these efforts are actually dealing with the structural issues related to mental health, job, poverty, rent that is going higher and higher every day. And those are real issues that we as a city really don't have a lot of control over. But we are here to listen, and we are actually putting effort into kind of helping out the systems with the county, with the other cities, with the nonprofits. Our police department is doing a great job, but also our parks are looking great because there's a lot of effort from our community development director in making sure that there's a schedule to maintain them. We have a new bathroom at the river bottoms. We have bathrooms for the homeless shelters at the river bottoms. We have, again, committed to be part of the solution. So I fully understand the frustration because you guys are business owner and you're putting your private dollar in assuring that you can survive and make the bottom dollar. And that's important for our city to make sure that we're successful as well. So we want to support that as well. So I'll ask staff to, I don't know what the solution is, to tell you the truth, but I can tell you that we are actively engaged as a city. And we'll continue to be actively engaged. And I appreciate your coming over and giving us your frustration. At any rate, I think the Appeal Democrat came out with the editorial on Sunday thanking us for doing some good things on being supportive, on helping homeless move forward so they can move forward. And anyway, thank you again for your input. We'll be actively involved. I think city councils did hear you, And I think we'll be able to work with staff and trying to find other solutions. There are active meetings happening on a monthly basis between cities and the counties. The next meeting is June 16, June 19. There's homeless consortium meetings where they're meeting on a consistent basis. Please contact me, I'll get you those dates so you can see some of the efforts that are going on regionally. Any other comments from the public? Go ahead, sir. Is it the same thing?
Yeah, it is. So you said that you guys are doing something in humanity, publicly. So what happens when myself and all the people that just came in front of you leave Marysville and you don't have any businesses in here or you don't have anyone here? Then what happens? Because it is going that route.
Right. Did you hear me though?
Excuse me?
Did you hear me?
I did hear you.
Okay. I think we're actively engaged, and I'm not sure exactly what you, and I'm not gonna get them back and forth, but you and I can meet, we can meet over coffee?
Sure, absolutely.
Absolutely, so leave your number and then we can have a discussion.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. It's the same thing, listen.
I have a question as to what you have presented to us.
Okay.
Okay? I think all the programs, because I read the Appeal Democrat, I think all of that is great for the people, the homeless people that are in a situation that want to take advantage of these aids and this help. But I'm more frustrated about the vandalism. These are people who don't want to go to the 14 Forward. They don't want to go to shower. They want what they want, and it seems like they have more rights than we tax-paying, good, upright citizens of this country. And that's the biggest frustration. What is the law in the city of Marysville for people drinking alcohol in public?
Yes, they can get a fine for that.
Okay, but that doesn't happen.
I'm not sure about that. I'm certain that our police department uses those opportunities
right?
To move people along. And I can give the chief an opportunity to speak about those type of cases.
Okay. Well, I don't have a problem with the police department, like I said.
The police department is part of the city.
They have been more than cooperative.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's their hands are tied in a lot of ways, from my understanding. And to me, I don't understand that. I guess I'm just naive, because I thought being a good citizen in this country meant you had more rights than people who are breaking the law and who are causing crime. That's all. Thank you.
that's why we have a lot of lawyers making a lot of money. Just kidding.
So I have a question.
Valerie,
I know.
let's
but
sit down.
My question is that you guys pat your back on how well you guys are doing the homeless, and you guys are donating to the homeless, and it's great. You guys are taking care of the homeless, and the homeless has got this and that and the other thing. But where is your mark on the board for helping out businesses with bringing in people, with helping us move the homeless along, and not coming into my shop and slobbering all over my counter and being drunk and disorderly, and where's the business stuff? Where's the people? I mean, because now we're getting fines for putting a sign out because we want to bring 110,000 cars off the highway into our shops. We want people to shop downtown. But you guys pat your back because you guys helped out the homeless?
Valerie, I hear you clearly. I think that's a gap, and I'm going to talk to staff about finding ways that we can help our businesses. And I think that's something that we've been committed to. Maybe it hasn't gone as fast as it should have been.
Well, I know that for 6 years it hasn't gone anywhere. I know that I took time with Kelly and Ben when they were here. I took time to help rewrite some of the sign laws that we could have more and get more people in and things like that. And downstairs shot it all down. because he didn't want to have an extra sandwich board outside, or the brick couldn't put a sign on the backside of his building, or, I mean, it was just little things like that. So if I'm taking the time in these months and hours to restructure things to help businesses come in, how come I can't get the same help out of you guys? Why can't we figure out something for us? You've spent enough money on the homeless.
Valerie, you made very clear your point. I truly understand you. We need to work with our local business owners.
You do.
Yes.
You
So
really
that's
do.
So I appreciate your message.
Okay.
Sir, no. I think it's been clear, and unless there's other points to be made, I'd like to move forward with the business part of the meeting. This is important. I'm not discounting the importance of this conversation, but it needs to be had in a different way. And I am asking staff, and I think they've heard very clearly, and I know there's been efforts on putting some programs for our downtown and our commercial corridors, but I think it's clearly that we need to do something that is very, very specific, very clear, that is going to support our business owners. Right?
Yes.
Okay, let's move forward. Thank you. And the Marysville Art Club, we'll sit down with you and we'll find, that was the question that I needed to ask, who owns the property and who owns the land, and that kind of cleared things up for me, so thank you for that. Okay, where's my agenda? Let's move to item 8, consent calendar. All matters in the consent calendar are considered to be routine and therefore approved by one motion, unless a council member or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. What's the will of the council?
Approve consent.
Motion by Simmons, second by Baracavoli. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sir, make sure you give me your, sir? Oh, you have a, you did? Oh, okay. Okay, did we vote on that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 5-0 vote?
5-0.
Thank you. Let's move to item 9, discussion and action calendar. All matters in this section or agenda are discussed and will be acted on individually. Members of the public may request to speak on any of these items for up to 3 minutes. Let's move to item A, revisit and adopt council goal setting and priority project lists. Marty?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, earlier this year on March 4th, the council held a goal setting and project prioritization workshop, and Katie Burdick was our facilitator for that meeting. And then on April 16th, Katie returned to the council and shared with the council some criteria for prioritizing the projects that came out of the workshop on March 4th. And now Katie is back again this evening to facilitate more dialogue and discussion on the progress in terms of prioritizing the projects that came out of March 4th, as well as looking at possible funding sources for those projects, and kind of walking the council through that and getting some additional feedback, and hopefully we'll be able to bring back a final list to the council at its June 18th meeting for approval. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katie Burdick to continue that dialogue and discussion with the council. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. I want to say something.
Say something.
This is great work, but I think it goes back to the previous comments. And I still want to make sure that I think we have to be clear on this, that none of these priorities or projects include working with our business owners and our small businesses in our area. There is one that talks about coordinating services for homelessness, and I think that's the point that our local businesses are making. We're putting more effort in supporting the homeless populations than we are supporting our local businesses. So we want to make sure that we put resources in supporting our local business. And we might be doing it, but at least it didn't show here. And so when someone looks at this, they'll say, well, none of your projects include helping small businesses. Anyway, just since I'm all excited.
So, good evening, those of you in the audience. I always feel awkward turning my back on everyone, but I know you're there. For you guys, my voice is no better than it was last time, so let me know if you need me to repeat. So, to remind you the backstory, where this list of projects came from was two different groups working as a group, city council members and staff. So people, council members and staff were asked to identify important projects for the city. The word project can be misleading in a setting like this. So for me, typically projects are more focused on capital projects and things and staffing as opposed to policies or other sorts of programs that the city might implement. Which isn't to say that they can't be on here, it's just to say that that was the focus and the directive that was given at the time that we worked together to develop the projects. So having a list of projects and going through probably a dozen different cities' prioritization practices, the universe is either infinite detail, which includes weighting scales, multiple ranking criteria, rather extensive and sometimes pretty complicated ways of calculating scores, all the way to the other end of the extreme, which is whatever anybody thinks is a priority is a priority. So where we tried to come down was in between those two. And so what we're bringing to you tonight is a draft. And I think the critical points here for you to think through as you look at this draft and see if it will work for you is the intent was to have clear, transparent, and wherever possible, quantifiable methodology for establishing what's important in the way of a project and what isn't. So, you know, an example of one that isn't that is, which I got the other day in a different setting. My uncle said it was a good idea. So I didn't include my uncle said it was a good idea as a criteria, but looking at whether a project actually is required or mandated, which means there's a consequence if you don't do it. Looking at whether a project generates revenue or saves revenue is another bottom line. So based on feedback from staff, we've slightly augmented the definition of mandated or required to include the concept of levels of service for public safety. Because frequently there's secondary consequences if, you know, public safety isn't addressed. So the secondary criteria that we came up with is any project that sort of affects or influences the city's best management practices. Then the columns that show up in green have to do with money. That's why they're green. And the idea there is that if a project, your decision-making is, are you going to pay for it yourself? Or is someone else going to pay for it? And paying for it yourself is either using your public revenues or getting loans. Having somebody else pay for it is going, for instance, to the Yuba Water Agency or to a state or federal agency. But the issue of who can pay for it is different than, is this a high priority project? So the separation between primary and secondary criteria and options for funding is intentional. So whether you think you can pay for it or not shouldn't be the determining criteria for whether it's a high priority project in this framework. So I could, keep writhing around and trying to explain it. I think maybe the better option here is to let you challenge it, because that's why we brought it. So I do want to emphasize, though, that a method for reviewing this criteria is not whether your favorite project scored well. The mindset for this is, are the projects and the criteria, the things in blue, the things that you want to live with in terms of the way you choose projects to invest in over time. So what do you think? The purpose of the meeting is love it, hate it, like this, hate that, want this, don't want that. So what's your reaction to it?
Go ahead.
Had a little bit of talk with this, with Katie, and I think this is the main criteria is in blue. I like the layout, how we've got it. I think the point system is what's going to be the important part of where it fits on the priorities. So I like the way it is. The mandated, obviously, is we don't have a choice on. And the revenue generating, obviously, we're going to be interested in. But I think the way you explained what would move it up the priority list is important for everyone to know, that it's not always just what we want or just what we can pay for, but knowing what has to be. I like the format that you've got here.
And so I would just follow up on your statement by saying the comfort level with the criteria needs to be solid, so that as discussions move forward into the future about prioritizing, everybody knows why and what the rationale is.
I like it too. I think it's very clearly laid out and easy to see, like you said, what needs to be done. And some have 2s in the column in the end, and lots have 0s. So it helps focus in on, okay, these are really the things that look like they need to happen before the others. So I like how that's done, and I think it's really easy to understand. I think the criteria is very clear and understandable. So thank you.
Yeah, good.
Okay, a few things. One, I guess I like this tied to the budget, because we can have, all the needs or wants in the world, but some of these are already tied to our current budget. It would be great just to have them marked somewhere, tied to this budget or next year's budget, whatever it may be. When are we planning to actually move forward on it? So I think that would be helpful also for folks, because if we're paying, if this year all our budget items are in tier 3, then that's probably, I don't know, then this is kind of moot, I guess. Second one, somewhere we lost our overall goals and objectives that we talked about during our initial meeting. We had kind of these broad goals and objectives. And I just felt like that also highlights why we're doing these things, because it's gonna be moved towards a overall goal of whether it's making beautiful parks or more business friendly, whatever those goals that we had, right?
Right.
How do those fit in here, or how do these fit in those things?
And so an easy, relatively easy way to do that is to have a column that says consistent with adopted goals.
Goal 1 or 2 or whatever they may be.
Yeah, and then you
part
would
of the
list them.
Yeah, and part of the
And-
document should include those goals as well for the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree, and I think
Yeah.
that, yeah.
But after today's comments, we need to rephrase our projects or relook at what we're doing for our small businesses, especially on our commercial streets, D Street, Fifth Street, B Street. And I know there's things and staffs that are working on, and I feel like we need to find those. I think they're in here, they just have to come out.
Well, and, I think because this should be a living document, it's not like you do it once and then it's cement on your ankles. I think I can work with staff and see how to translate or communicate as staff does that, what you've heard this evening, and then find a way to articulate what an associated project or action would be. And things of policy, this isn't really about policy.
Correct, but even like SACOG Economic Development Plan, I mean, that's something that I think has been, but it doesn't explain much on what that is.
Yeah, we can
And so, beef up something that kind of, I think there's stuff in here that could actually highlight some of the things that are in the works that are gonna help some of our local businesses.
Okay. So in response to what Stephanie said, what this is starting to feel like to me is a table that has a criteria in it with associated text that beefs up some of the discussion of the individual projects if the name itself isn't abundantly clear, self-explanatory. Because some things, we talked about this earlier, I talked about it with Ron, the project title would be 275 words long to get it to be fully explanatory of what's in it. So we'll walk a line there, and for ones that don't seem like they're fully explain what the content is, we can have a companion piece that comes along with it.
Okay. Yes.
Why is because I was looking down farther, one of the projects we're already doing is getting the quick attack vehicle and the vehicles for the fire department, although they weren't, it was a best management practice. So we're doing it because it's going to improve the fire department, the way they're functioning. So my question was why, is there a reason why we didn't include that in the total on the end?
Yes.
Why was that?
And so the reason is because when we put this version, so if this says version 6, the one I have in my hand that's all marked up is version 7. And what version 7 did was, after discussion amongst different staff, was added the concept of, the specific language was where did I put that? It's levels of service for public safety. And we put that with the mandated and required, and it actually moved all of the fire projects, except for one, up into tier 2. Because then there was, clearly a consistency with that.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, and, the good news is it's a living document. The bad news is we made it alive this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So what you will get probably shortly would be the updated version of this so that you could test whether what I said jives with what you see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, other?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I just want to remark on what you were saying between having, first of all, let me state, I'm one of those businesses that you guys are out there having a problem being. I'm one of them too, having the same problems. I just want you to be aware of that. But when you're talking about what we would have in our goal setting for the small businesses, is that something that would fall under the public safety and the homeless portion of this? Because I want to see something done more immediately than just getting on our goal setting sheet. I'm not sure where it fits into goal setting as much as it's policy setting.
I think it's two separate things. I think this list, I need somehow assistance to our local businesses, support, I don't know about assistance, supporting our local businesses, especially our small businesses, needs to be somehow, there's some things in there I think can be actually be checked as something that will support our local business. But I think staff heard us, hopefully they heard us, but we'll follow up. I think we need to follow up and make sure that we start being more specific on what can we do in the short term. Let's start meeting with our local businesses. Let's start listening exactly what are the issues are, and let's start making a game plan in a short term. I think those are two separate things.
I totally agree. I thought you were combining them. No. I don't quite see that fitting to the goal setting, but what I do see is that it's an increasingly horrible problem that we're running into, that we need to do something now, and get involved and do something now, whatever that might be. I know there's not a good answer, but I'm just wondering, it sounded like it was getting a little convoluted between the goal setting and
I think that's why I brought the whole
setting that we need to do sooner than later.
That's why I brought the idea that we need to bring back our goals and objectives in here, because I think our goals and objectives talk about our vibrancy of our cities and our local businesses. I think if it doesn't, then we should add something in there about assuring that we're focusing our local businesses and we're going to expand business in this, and we want to bring private investment into this area. So if that's not in there, then we need to revise that as well. So again, this is a living document, but I think it's clear that we're doing more to support those that aren't contributing to the city, and those that are contributing to the city, they're feeling left out, and we need to make sure we support them.
Okay, so from my perspective, we can update the goals and objectives.
Yeah.
We just would want to do a repeat in some way of the way we did it before, so there's full participation. But, that's easy enough to do.
Or just bring them back. I think they're in there. I think it's in there already. I don't recall them, but.
Okay, we'll bring them back. And that'll be a one-page attachment.
Yeah.
And then the column, you can put the number of the goal or the objective.
Correct. And then where does it lie in our funding? Is it tied to our current budget?
Yeah, I've got that as a note as well. So one final thing, the next piece for something like this would be a staff time allocation correlation between job descriptions and projects, so that we don't get the city in a situation where in implementing a project or a piece of work, that somebody who's, if you thought of it as a pie chart, their pie chart for topic X was supposed to be this big, but with everything that you add, suddenly it's this big. The only way for it to get that big is for them to not do something else. So we need to do a correlation between job description, staff allocation. Everybody has allocations for how much time they're supposed to spend, so that you've got that additional reality check. And it doesn't really lend itself to a column yet until we've done that evaluation. Then we could come back and add it. If you add enough pieces in that you actually need 3 new staff, you need to know that, because there's a ripple effect through the budget. So that would be the next piece that I'd bring back.
Okay, or they get cut off because we don't have the monies for it to support another position or another layer.
Well, but the point being, until you know what the formula is, you don't know how upset to be.
Yep.
So people are good with this?
I think so. I think this is a great, I think it's going to keep us in line. It'll let the public know on the things that are our priorities, and I'd like to invite the public if they have any comments on this item.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Timothy Stachinsky. I live at 213 3rd Street. I believe my comments reflect both on this proposal as well as the preceding comments that have been said. And I just jotted down my comments and our thoughts. We need more rules, regulation, codes, and laws, said no businessman ever. I want to bring business to Marysville and be highly competitive with national chains and franchises. Our business is not dependent on the City Council. It's dependent on us doing our job. Our hope is to receive encouragement, support, guidance, and direction from city services to do business within the already challenging regulations within the state of California. We want to solve the homeless problem, but gentrification is often looked at as a four-letter word. Development and rejuvenation ought to be encouraged with reasonable response from city services. Fines and levies are not positive motivators, but necessary for blatant violators. Blatancy is defined by warning that is ignored with purpose. Getting involved and participation by the community is paramount to success. I'd just like to say that that's also something that's very dear to my heart, and I'm very thankful for the Arts Council and the things that have been going on within our city. Law enforcement is also doing a wonderful job given the current circumstances. I believe that we are coming to a receptive city services, and if there is a point that we may have to ask for permission for something, we know the answer might be no. My hope is to have open dialogue, and then this thus far has been our experience. Thank you, Sid.
Thank you, sir.
Stuart Gilchrist, 101 C Street in Marysville. Hello, everyone. I recommend to City Council that you adopt this goal-setting and priority project list. It is a living document, and so it will evolve. On it, I have seen new housing element under the priority project criteria and hotel housing. So in order for our businesses to succeed, we need new people to come visit us and stay with us, and they need places to live. And so I see that you've gotten this in here in a nutshell. So I think that's fantastic. And that is all I have to say about this subject. The homeless situation, as we are all aware of, is far worse outside of Marysville than it is anywhere else. I just have to let you know that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, if there's no more public, I thank you so much for the continuous work. Marty, is there something you expect from us, or?
No, I would just say that I think that Katie and I will go back and take your comments that we heard this evening, reincorporate them into this document, and then bring it back to the council along with the goals that you mentioned earlier, and bring all of that together back as a package and ask the council for approval. And recognizing it's a living document, we would love to also incorporate it into the final budget like we did similar to last year as well.
Awesome. Great. So thank you so much. Katie, I'm not sure why you have to deal with us, but I do appreciate you dealing with us.
I do it because I want to.
Oh, thank you.
And that's another thing, I do it because my mom grew up in Marysville and had 810 G Street. She's 100 years old, and she still asks me every time, did you go to 810 G Street?
Let's move to item B, fiscal year 2019-20 budget presentation and discussion. Our recommendation from staff is to review and discuss the fiscal year 2019-20 recommended budget and provide direction to staff. Ms.
Stuczynski. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I am here for a second round of recommending our budget for our fiscal year 2019-2020. Just want to let you know, again, this has been a team effort among everybody here on the staff. Even since the last meeting, we are constantly talking about our budget, what's going on, what we need to see, where we believe it needs to go so that we can bring this recommendation to you. So just want to let you know this is a fully, again, a living document between all of us staff members working with you. So, and today it's also going to be more, we're not going to be doing the big picture of the economy. We're going to do more of a dive into the budget, to some specific departments, some changes we're recommending, and then looking for direction from the council at the end of what the next step would be to having an approved budget. Okay, so we're going to go through our presentation agenda. So there is a little bit of, we're going to do the city big picture budget. We're not going to do the economy. We're going to quickly revisit our general fund balances, revenues, and expenses. Again, just do a quick recap of our new revenue and recommended expenses and our proposed capital improvements. And then we're going to go through some other budgetary changes by each department. We also had a public workshop last night, so we're going to have a summary of that and then talk about what our next steps are. So just for the big picture for the budget is revenues. We're talking about the general fund. There is an 8.6% increase in our general revenues, and this is a change between our projected fiscal year 18-19 and what we're recommending for fiscal year 2019-20. Those changes that we're talking about when we talk about increased revenues that are coming into the city will be addressed at that time. And then our expenses are going up 9% for general expenses. Again, this is a change between our projected 18-19 and our recommended for this current budget. Again, we are still currently in labor negotiations, so we do have to say that this could result in some expenses could change throughout the budget once labor negotiations are done. So this is done with the status quo budget with where we're currently at with our labor. So overall, because since we had the rate study a few weeks ago, we've been able to work on the budget for the wastewater. So this does include the enterprise fund. So we currently are sitting at a budget of $15.52 million total operating budget, and $10.05 million of that is general fund monies. Okay, so again, we are starting with our audited beginning fund balance, and this is as of June 30th, 2018. Is $2,456,504. Right now, we're projecting our revenues at just over $10 million. Our projected expenses are $10,417,727, which gives us a projecting ending fund balance of $2,093,277. Again, these are projected expenses, and they may change as we are currently in labor negotiations. So we just wanted to give you just a brief overview of our projected operating revenue as it is per fund. We have 5 funds. As you can tell, the general fund is our largest fund with just over $10 million. We have our special revenue fund, which is items like our street funding, our COPS SLEF fund, and also CDBG. Capital project fund, that's capital projects. Successor agencies would be our RDA property. And then our enterprise fund, which is, of course, our wastewater fund. So this does include the enterprise fund, which was not included in the last budget. So again, our revenues are projected to be around $15.72 million. So our overall expenses compared to that is our general fund is we're looking at $10.41 million overall. And then special revenue of $820,000. We can read through the list. So overall, we're looking at our recommended expenses will be $16.74 million at this time. And then if we look at the major operating expenses by department, it just kind of gives you an idea of where our money is going towards. So as you can tell, the police department
Jennifer?
has, yes.
Just want to confirm that there are over expenditure that 410,000. I think I read in your memo that that's something that was supposed to be spent this past year, but will be spent this year, and the money's already there? We're not necessarily overspending.
Correct, there is some sections like that.
But I mean, is that what that I guess it looks bad if we're saying that we can overspend our general fund, 10.41.
We do have some one-time operating costs that we're going to be presenting as recommended, and that's the reason why. So we will be cutting into the fund balance to be able to pay for one-time expenses.
Okay.
So those are greater, correct, than the current revenue that's coming in.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
But it is true, there is some carry forward from prior years.
Okay.
To the chair.
Yes.
On the same page, you talked on the 4.08 on enterprise funding. Is that including the proposal for a rate increase?
Yes, that is,
That's a new rate.
that would be what the new rate would be, correct. So this is based on the assumption that you would pass the current rate study that was listed in the, sorry, I didn't bring that up in this part, but was listed in the staff report, that it is budgeted based on the rate study that we just did.
So are we gonna be able to meet, because we're only gonna bring in 3.5 and then our expenses are gonna be 4.8?
Well, the reason why the expenses are more is because we have carry forward from the,
That's the part.
correct, so it was almost a $500,000 that's coming forward that we didn't spend on capital projects for the wastewater that we have
Okay.
to bring in this current budget. So that's why we're budgeting $500,000.
Okay.
So that technically was not spent in the prior year. So yeah, it does look lopsided, that $500,000, because it is a carry forward from the prior year loan proceeds for the enterprise fund.
Okay, thank you.
So you are correct, it does look a little backwards because of that, but when we look at the
I'm
actual
sorry,
budget.
is that what you're asking, Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if we look at the actual budget sheets for the enterprise fund, it's almost, it's not at zero, but it's within a couple $1,000s of being a balanced budget on that one. It's just due to the
So I'm gonna ask
finishing
you
up
a
the
question
capital
to maybe help me.
Mm-hmm.
Is how much of the 10.41 of general funds needs to be sustained for multiple years? Do you have that amount of what's the one time this year, like the whole amount versus what needs to be sustained for multiple years?
I do have a figure that does have that amount.
And is it in this presentation?
It is not, but I can provide that for you. correct.
Okay, thank you.
It has been figured out already, but it's not in this.
Okay, that'd be helpful for the public to see that we have expenditure to be able to be sustained in the future, and this is one-time expenditures to kind of, just kind of move forward with some old equipment or whatever, leveraging a grant or whatever that may be.
So that,
But you don't have to do it, I just so,
I won't have the exact amount, but it is about $275,000 that we're proposing in one-time expenses above the current budget, or above status quo.
so then there's gonna be, based on what you said, there's gonna be a ongoing deficit if we have the similar revenues.
Correct, it would be around 100,000 per year, unless our revenue goes up or we find somewhere else to cut back an expense. But if we took out all the one-time expenses for right now, and then just kept with everything else as is going forward, it would be about $100,000 a year into our fund balance. Again, this is prior to labor negotiations.
So they might be larger.
It possibly could. We will be addressing that later on this evening when we go into closed session. City manager has already a
Okay.
presentation prepared for that.
Okay.
So again, we're looking at the major departments. Police department is just under 3 million. We have our fire department at just over 2 million. Community development and services, that is obviously parks, buildings, streets, everything that's under Jim's department. We've put together the city manager and admin services together, and then we've already talked about the last time that we are with our human resources. Again, we're taking out every department expense that has to do with workers' comp, unemployment, and UAL, the unfunded liability, and putting it into a human resource account that can't be actually designated to a single employee. And this way, it's not buried within a budget. Because right now, we were allocating UAL, or unfunded liability, to a person and not to an actual budget. So it's very hard to track it. It was making everybody's budgets not a true picture of the total cost of what it takes to run a fire department or a police department. So we're now putting it in a human resource fund so that we can track that and we can see it all in one place and not spread throughout a budget. Okay, so when we were talking about our revenues going up between last year and this current year, this is our list of why. Of course, we always have a small increase due to our sales tax goes up every year, at least we hope it's going to. We have projections and we work with a company on that, and plus with our property taxes, there's always small increases there. These are additional revenues that we know will be coming in this next fiscal year. Again, we brought up the Hard Rock Casino. This is $250,000. This is for a 15-year. And then we have some AB8 property tax money, which is just over $42,000, which is a 10-year. We've set Measure F at $50,000. We've had the new dispensaries that have just recently opened, and we talked about last time we're averaging, I don't remember the exact amount, probably around $4,000 or $5,000 a month, and it has been growing because we've only had 4 payments come in, a partial payment and three full months. So we're still figuring that out. So we didn't want to overestimate it and say 200,000 is going to come in and then because we've had that issue happen before. Again, we've talked about our lab revenue that we've talked with, that Mr. Bermudez has worked with our development agreement with the new lab that's in town. And then we did include that the B Street parking revenue that we currently have, this is one-time monies, but we do our budgeting around 10,000. And then just some other additional training and animal control violations that we're bringing on.
Excuse me, through the chair?
Yes.
That AB8 property tax, is that a guaranteed 42.8 for 10 years? Or is that, because that's subject to the Board of Supervisors, how they want to allocate that? Do we have an MOU? Are we pending an MOU?
Yes, we do. I did receive a copy of it, and the agreement from, it is the county that we did receive that from. I do have a copy of that agreement in my audit file, or the budget file.
So that's guaranteed 42.8 minimum for 10 years?
Yes. Sorry, I'm going to refer to the city manager to make sure.
It could fluctuate a little bit, but mostly it's going to continue to go up according to, the amount that goes up annually. So it could go up to more like 43, 44 gradually, but generally speaking, this year it's 42.8, and we're making the assumption it'll be at least that, probably a little bit more each year, because probably do go up a little bit.
Okay.
Mr. Mann. So, going back to what you were saying a second ago, so we're projecting $100,000 or loss this year, and then $100,000 loss every year after this is the way it's being projected. And then we run out of our sales tax initiative at what year?
26.
Am I understanding this right?
That is only saying if we don't adjust our revenues, or if we don't bring more revenues in, or if we don't find a way to cut other expenses in the future.
But right now, with everything we're projecting, we're gonna have this year of, what was the loss for this year?
About 100. It's a difference of about $100,000. That is not one-time
If
dollar.
we take off the one time, correct.
And unless something happens, we're gonna be looking at a projected $100,000 loss every year without doing any improvements and changes, increases anyway. Am I pretty close there?
If it's status quo, nothing else changes, that would be
So
fine.
services don't get any better. And then we're also looking at what's gonna happen in, what did you say,
2026.
2026.
And then we're gonna lose,
2.5.
2.5 million at that point?
We better get going on that campaign, young man. No, but I think the question is, are we ready to have the next Measure C report to the public? And how are you capturing where the money's being spent?
So we are waiting for the audit, which we're planning to have finished in early July, and as soon as that's done, then both Jennifer and I will work on the next Measure C report.
Correct.
But we'd like that audit to be complete before we do that, because that's part of what tells us where the money went, so it allows me to prepare the next Measure C report. Just, I would just like to mention briefly to the council that, we recognize the importance of Measure C and how critical it has become to the city's budget, and at some point, relatively, not in the so distant future, I envision that I need to come back to the council and look for support from the council to move forward with going back out again for.
Well, before you say those words, I think the public needs to see where the money's being spent. And so we want to make sure that's captured and we let the public know fairly clearly how that's spent. So I don't want to have this conversation right now.
Okay.
Because it just clouds things. And I think the public, we told them that we're going to have an annual, report. And so I think the public's looking for that, and they want to make sure that if they're going to support anything, that it's being spent appropriately.
Well, it is 7 years away, so we do have some time.
So I know I'm going to use my excuse again that I'm new to this game.
You're new?
But I'm not new to budgets, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. We're expecting to lose $100,000 a year for at least the next 6 or 7 years?
If we maintain the same level of services.
If we maintain the same level of services.
And we don't have any new revenue coming in.
Right. And we're using all our projected revenues, we're using our one-time revenues?
The one area that we're not really counting is cannabis. So that, I think, in my mind, which is, that's one area that I think there's room.
We have no cannabis in this policy, right?
There's only 50 grand in this year.
Right, okay.
And in my mind, I think there's growth there, but I think we have to keep a good eye on it.
Another part with that, Bruce, is we recently have a 7-year financial model that we hired someone to prepare for us. Being with having not a finance director for a while, it's been a while to get things caught up. After the budget's done, our department plans on start to working on getting this model up for you. And so to present it in hopefully September, October-ish, that will show where we're at and where we see things are, and you can actually see a seven-year out projection that will have variances built into it, because we know you're going to have at least a 1% increase in sales tax every year, and then cost of living. So we'll be able to actually project it out and give you guys a much better idea of where things are going, so it doesn't look like, oh, we're going to lose $100,000 a year. We can give you an actual projection of what that looks like.
And some of our funder liability, right? Remember, there was like in a year or so that's dipping down because we pay one off. Remember that?
Yeah, it's only, yeah.
But I mean,
we're looking at $75,000 in the fourth year.
Yeah.
That
Correct.
we would start then having a
And these are the kind of things that we would see in a model that we would in future years present during the budget, so that you guys would have a clearer picture. So we're not just looking at this year standalone. We're saying, yes, this is this year standalone, but here's how it's going to impact us in the future, and give you guys a much better idea than just looking at it.
Let me ask on this. So based on what you just said, Mr. Mayor, we had a savings this first year of $400 and some odd thousand in our refinancing. Is that built into this? That
Yes.
savings is already
So
built
what
in
it
here?
is that we have over $600,000 of one-time expenses. And then we're backing off the savings, which is around the 420. I'm using very general
Right.
numbers on that.
Right.
And that's how we came up with the 275,000.
Gotcha.
So we are using that savings of this year to catch up for a lot of one-time expenses that we have not been able to, so we can move forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
My concern is the second and third year. If we're using, or the following years, if we're using that large of a savings, a one-time thing, then aren't we going to drop even quite a bit heavier in the next years?
It just depends on what one-time expenses that we bring forward next year.
Okay.
Because we wouldn't be bringing those forward again next year, so that would be a clean slate off the budget. We would only have the status quo. And then we would also bring on top of that whatever one-time expenses and additional ongoing revenues, or even one-time revenues we might be bringing forward.
Through the chair.
Again,
Yes.
Is this including all this millions of dollars we're going to be saving by refinancing the B Street and doing all this refinancing?
Yes, that's already been.
That's already in here?
That's already been built in there.
And we're still going to be losing money?
We're not losing money, we're investing into,
It's not what I'm hearing.
we're investing in infrastructure that needs to be taken care of.
I am finished, believe me.
I'm just thinking about the model that Mr. Heath had shown us before, and he projected out for 7 years, I think, in that presentation that he made. And we had a couple of years where it dipped. But was that model based on this budget?
No, it was not.
Mostly-
That was based on where our budget was for last fiscal year, because we didn't have this fiscal year put together, so.
Okay, so he showed a couple of years where it kind of dipped because of the UAL, right? And then it climbed for,
Correct, but that is also due to the fact that if we did not do anything with our UAL, then we would have a dip. If we refund it like we're talking about now and doing the POB, then we would know what our state, or what a steady would be. So we wouldn't necessarily have that dip because we'd have overall lower payments.
okay.
Because we'd have a lower interest rate that went around 3.5% instead of the 7%. So that model was showing us paying our current UAL as is without bonding it so that we could save on the interest.
And it showed growth, though. We were continually getting in a better position. So these one-time expenses don't necessarily move us out of that growth pattern necessarily. Do you know what I'm saying?
I believe I do, but I might have to look into that a little bit more for you.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, once we get the model up, it will be a much better tool to be able to see where the projections are going.
To the chair.
Yes, sir.
Just, we went through these priorities. I was just sitting here thinking, maybe we're biting off a lot more than we are financially able to take care of in these priorities. Maybe we have 4 or 5 of these things that we could budget for the next year, and 4 or 5 next year, so try and take all these on at once and be able to manage this budget more, because we're not going to be able to do all these. There's just no way. They're going to keep on kicking can down the road. But if we would budget for the 5 high priority items and budget those, like we talked about, then get those finished and go into the next budget cycle with whatever else the city council likes to do. But I don't think, and this budget deficit we're going to have next, did that include all these priorities? Tier 1 and tier 3?
No, it did not. I didn't.
We have no idea what these are going to cost yet, do we?
No, that was not an integral part of producing the budget that we currently have. That was just talking with staff and finding out what we needed to, what level of service we needed for the city. So, any additional questions?
You're scaring us.
Yes.
But I do want to come back to, I don't know, silver lining. We'll still have projecting ending fund balance of about $2 million. That after all these expenses and additional that we'll have at the end of the fiscal year next year, we have a projected balance of $2 million. And let's say a pipe breaks somewhere and we have to fix that, we still have that cushion, I guess, right?
Correct, and we've also kept in mind the reserve policy that was just adopted. We've made sure that we've kept everything above the 20%, actually well above that, so that there is wiggle room as in that part. So we haven't brought it down to below the 20% reserve that we have spoken about. I know originally we had the 28% when we had the 2.5 million. So yes, we will be cutting into the starting fund balance, or the ending fund balance, if we want to say it. But we'll still be within the 20% reserve that we have, that the council set forth, with the goal of eventually bringing in more revenue and cutting costs where we can to start rebuilding that reserve. So that was taken into consideration as we built the budget also.
Okay, thank you.
So
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
So this next slide is just a brief overview of some of the grant revenue that we know is coming in. We went through this last time, so I'm not going to go back through everything. Just to let you know, there are a few local matches that are already built into the budget for the police department, for the UTV, and then for the body vest. The body vest is a 50% reimbursement. And then on the next slide is the fire department, and these were also grant revenues that we are bringing in. Again, these are listed with no local match currently. So then we're going to move on to, again, these are staff recommendations. These are recommended one-time expenses for fiscal year 2019-20. So when we're talking about the city council, we do have a proposal in there for the cap to cap, which is the capital that Mayor Samayoa, sorry.
See, we got to work on it.
I know, we're both going to get each other's names a little bit. This is for up to 2 council members to attend cap to cap. And the other portion that we added in here is we have, which we'll talk about later in slide, is we moved the planning commissioners to under the city council budget. And this is a proposed budget for sending them up to 7 commissioners to the League of California Cities Planning Academy, I think that's what's called, meeting down in LA in 2020.
That also, excuse me, through the chair, will that also include their salary?
No, the stipends are on a separate line item because those are not one-time expenses, they'll be ongoing expenses.
Yeah, but they do have to be managed. And all that money that they've had two meetings this year, and that money was set aside for the salary or the stipends?
Yeah, it is in the line-by-line budget for the city council, there is a line specifically made for that.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yes, and we budgeted for basically every council member being there at every meeting for 12 months, so I think it's around $1,260, somewhere right around there. But that is laid out in the budget for city council.
Because that money it's not being used, we might want to transfer that into some training program or something for the planning commission.
And then we could do, with
Just a
budget
line
approval,
transfer.
with your guys' approval, we could do a budget adjustment with that towards the end of the year if the money has not been spent. But it is allocated 100% for them to be there every meeting.
Good, thank you again.
So, not a problem at all. Okay, so again, our recommended one-time expenses, we've gone through these last time in our Community Development and Services Department. We have consulting services for a variety of projects that need to get started or have been started, but again, with the vacancy of our Assistant Community Director, a lot of these are at a standstill, so this is to get us back moving. We do have $20,000 in there for the boat dock kiosk. This is due to the fact that for the past, I can't remember exactly how many years, 2 or 3 years, we had always spoke about as the fees came in for that we were going to reinvest it into the boat dock. So as you guys are probably more than well aware, the money gets stolen out of there. Quite frequently, it's broken into, it's coming in with $5 bills, so we're going to propose that we do a kiosk that will be an electronic, that will be better for the city to actually recover the funds so it won't be stolen, and just also easier on the people that go down there, because having a $5 bill is not always easy for a lot of them to have. Again, it's also to hire Bed and Engineering to manage our proposed ATP grant. And then we've also talked about the Prop 68 consultant, the $79,000. And again, we were going to use the savings that we were having from not having for the community assistant community director, the one half of his savings from a year's salary would go towards this. And then we have budgeted for his salaries to start in January of 2020 so that we're not losing that position. The next one on the recommended one time is in the finance department is a consultant for the cannabis ordinance and a potential cannabis ballot measure. And then in the fire department, we do have some buildings and grounds repairs and maintenance that still needs to be done. That would be one time. That's, again, we talked about the bay doors, don't always, if it doesn't want to go up, it's stuck and the engines are stuck in there, so repairing our, some gate maintenance. Another item that we're looking at is an overall department assessment of cost recovery and service delivery. This is separate from the presentation that you received earlier from fire recovery. This is a different program. This is looking at partnerships between us and the county, or with Olivehurst or Aventis Health, or looking at our contracts that we have with D10, because we want to reevaluate what they're actually paying us for the services compared to what our overall expenses are. So that's with that $15,000. With hiring our new fire inspector, we have a fire prevention consultant that's going to be helping us to answer any questions that may come up, just for not only for the fire inspector, but for anybody in the department and that. And then again, we spoke about SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus replacement. So they are out of compliant and we do need to replace them. It's around $215,000 total to replace. So there is currently a grant that's been applied for. We don't know if we will receive it. If we do, it'll cover about $198,000 of that. But we have budgeted that if we do not receive it, that we would split it between 2 fiscal years. So we put $107,500 in this year, and then $107,500 in the next year. The reason we have this $68,500 is because, as we showed on the fire department slides for grants, we know we're receiving a $39,000 grant for SCBA replacement, so that'll be able to reduce it for this current fiscal year that we're in. Kind of ease the impact of not putting a $215,000 bill in the budget all at once. So in our IT department, again, this is one of those newly, we had it last year, but we have now restructured our IT department. So in various years, people's software, computers, any kind of IT was buried within departments. So, which is also hard to manage. It's also hard when somebody calls in and says, hey, my computer's broke, who do you contact? So we now have created an IT department that is sitting below the police department. They're the ones that are managing it. Police Chief Sachs is the one who is in charge of it. That is just because most of the services that IT provides are extremely critical to the police department, and they know the ins and outs of that, the IT, the budget, and the company that we work with, Alliant, very, very intimately in that way. So he's now in charge of that budget. So we are asking for a few one-time expenses. Again, we've already kind of gone through these PD scheduling software to make it easier and to save money on the scheduling that we currently are having issues with. Again, paper and green slips, not the most efficient way. iPads for the council for meetings. For also the document management software system for the city clerk. The new one that we have added on here that was not on the last one that we have found out is we need to replace 10 City Hall computers, and then there's also this Windows 10 conversion. So what has happened is we have found out that Windows 10, you have to convert to them by I think it's January 1st of next year. So basically after January 1st, if you don't have Windows 10 on your computers, you lose all your support. We've had an assessment through Police Chief Sachs with that, and we found out that pretty much almost every computer in City Hall is past that point or well past that point. So basically we will not be able to upgrade any of our computers that we have after midway through the year, which is probably not a good thing to run our software systems. So we're proposing to be able to replace those computers so that they stay compliant. And then the Windows 10 conversion is we do have some other, we've also recognized several computers within other departments that are not that old but still need the conversion. So we have found a way to convert those without actually replacing the computer. So if we didn't require a replacement, we're just doing a conversion, which is obviously better for our budget overall. So we went through and assessed all the needs of all the computers and all the department, or actually Police Chief Sachs took care of that for us. So that's the new ones that we've are bringing that was not on the last slides last time we were here. Again, we're recommending a few new personnel positions, a part-time, an additional part-time dispatcher, part-time records clerk. That's because our animal control officer was our part-time records clerk at the same time, but obviously that is a full-time job, so we need her to be full-time animal control officers, and we need someone to help with the records clerk. A part-time building inspector, which we discussed about last time for Director of Municipalities Department, and then again, a full-time wastewater collections officer for the enterprise fund. We currently only have one full-time employee on staff, and we need a second person to be able to manage the lines and the calls that come through. Right now, if something happens, we have our street guys have to sometimes, help out and pitch in there. So we need the second wastewater, which is budgeted into the enterprise fund. So some of our other recommended ongoing expenses, is this another one that we are bringing, is with the rate study that we currently just had, we did find out for us to connect to Linda is obviously a substantial fee to be able to pay a monthly fee to them for us. Sorry, Jim, what would be a good term for a monthly service charge between us and Linda?
Transfer.
Transfer? Okay, we'll go with that. But there is a cost of us connecting into Linda's. And so when we did the wastewater survey, that amount is included in the proposed rates that we talked about, was this $882,000. $25,000 of that has been identified that they've asked for capital projects. And then the other one that we have done is we've now created a division of homelessness that it's going to be under community development's purview of departments, but instead of it being integrated in within several departments and police department and kind of hidden within line items, we've now created a new fund that was going to have a $10,000 budget. That is the current budget that we had, but again, it was just shoved into just one line within one department, and now we have it as its own department. This way, again, Director Bermudez will oversee it, but if another department needs funding out of that, say for the police department, then we'll just make sure it's within the budget for that. But again, it's for better transparency.
Jennifer, this is not your fault, but I think it just goes back to the entire, meeting.
Correct.
And so-
This was already done before tonight's discussion.
So we should have somewhere in our budget, this talks about small business support.
And economic development, correct.
Something in our budget. And maybe it's there already, maybe it already exists, but we want to make sure that it's highlighted when we adopt the budget, and not just have a homeless coordination efforts.
Okay, we will take note of that and work on that with staff and bring back a recommendation on that one. The other ongoing expenses that we're talking about is, we brought it up last time, is a lease program with Enterprise Fleet Management. I know sometimes it gets confused because when I see Enterprise, I keep on thinking of the Enterprise Fund, but it's Enterprise Fleet Management, which is separate from our fund, about updating more vehicles that we currently have that are outdated. We went through that last time. I think our newest vehicle is 2007. They're very high maintenance costs, gas costs. And so we have come up with a solution of leasing our vehicles. So one of them is for a utility truck for the fire department. And then we have 3 for community development, 1 for fleet services, and 2 for parks. There is also an additional in the streets budget, which didn't get outlined on this. There's 4 for the streets budget, and then 2 for the enterprise, which is budgeted within the enterprise fund. The other one is we're talking about a general plan update, and it is around a $1.5 million endeavor. So we have budgeted at a 10-year loan at, I can't remember, I wrote it down, but I didn't write it down here. I think it's 3 or 4% interest rate, and so that payment comes to be around $174,000 per year. And then again, we talked about last time, we are in need of a new boom truck. We have priced it out. It's around $130,000. We are currently looking at options if we need to outright buy it, if we need to lease it, just what our payment options will be at this current time. But staff is still working on that recommendation for you. So the $130,000 is not a yearly payment. I just want to let you know that is just the overall cost of it, and we're working on a yearly payment. Some other recommended ongoing expenses that we are putting out there is in the finance department is to continue. We have a municipal finance consulting. We're recommending to keep that in there with still catching up with the audits, and then also with just for staffing needs is when we come up to the next audit or we come up to other items that are coming up, we have a financial consultant or we have the ability to hire additional staff, temporary staff, to come in to be able to get a specific project done. So that's what the $22,000 recommendation is for that. We did have that in the past. This is just solidifying that idea. In the fire department, EMS supplies. In past years, like I mentioned last time, we had put it under clothing and protective gear, which does not make sense. So we are creating its own budget for it, but it is an ongoing expense because it's something that we've always done. We're just now actually clarifying and say, yes, this is how much that we need to spend on EMS supplies. Same with small tools and instruments. This is for repairs of chainsaws, extrication equipment. Again, this was never actually called out in the budget. It was just if there was extra money in an account, you would take it out of that account. So for clarification and transparency, we've upped that account so that we can replace equipment as needed. And then again, on here, there's the Rebuild, Reserve, and Intern program. I do have a little more detail I wrote down on that one. And I flipped to the wrong one. I went too far on my notes. So about that, so around $30,000 of that is to increase the overall overtime for the fire department. If we look at a historic average, we always seem to under budget, and then every year we come in over budget. So again, we're not going top tier like we're going to have crazy overtime amount. But the reality is that we always come over budget in our overtime. So we need to make it a more realistic number and increase what we do believe our overtime is going to be. We are upping our reserve and internship program, which will be about $22,000. Right now, we We currently do not have a lot of reserves in the department. We do, but with fewer hours. We're working on upping that reserve program so that we can bring more people back. So we've scheduled it, I think, 20 hours a week for reserves. And then the other part is for an internship program, is we have several people that are coming out of academy that they can come in and work with us for a 6-month stint. We pay them $300 a month stipend, and they come in and they work 24-hour shifts with our department. So it gives us an additional body on hand, and then it also gives them the needed experience that they need for moving forward through the fire academies or other venues past that. Okay, so recommended ongoing expense, continuing with that with the fire department. So I did want to add that I know last time we mentioned the SAFER grant in the meeting, but the numbers were not included. These numbers currently in this budget reflect the SAFER grant. So again, this is something that it's a staff recommendation, that it is something that you guys do set the policy on whether we accept this grant or we don't. We do not know at this current time if we have it. If we do get it, it is up to council. You guys can decide that we will accept it or not accept it. The fiscal impact of that is around $65,000 for the first year, $65,000 for year 2. And as you can see, $171,000 for year 3. And then at the end of the 3-year grant, we would have to decide if we keep the 3 engineers on, or at that point, if we lay them off because we don't have a SAFER grant. So again, those numbers have now been included when we talk about the overall revenue and expenses in this. But again, if it is your guys' recommendation, so if you guys choose not to move forward with it, we can remove that from the budget. The other part that we wanted to add is cell phone allowances. Right now, all of our fire captains and our fire engineer, right now, we don't pay them any type of reimbursement for their phones, but we use them, we call them all the time. They're using their phones. So we're proposing the same thing that we do for our public works and and some of the people in the police department. It's a $40 a month cell phone allowance to help offset the cost of them having a cell phone. And then the other last one is replacing analog radios. So we're doing this on a multi-year plan. Several of our radios are outdated. So we've come up with a plan to just start replacing them over, I don't remember the exact time frame, but this will be something that will be an ongoing expense for at least 2 or 3 years so that we can replace them instead of all at once. We do have a possible grant again out for this. We're not sure if we will receive it or not. If we do not, we have come up with a plan. When we reallocated the Prop 172 funds a few meetings ago, there was, when we allocated for the police department and for the fire department, we took a portion of what went to the fire department and we put it into Fund 60, into their account for vehicle and apparatus replacement. And so if we do not get the grant, what we will do is we're going to take the money out of Fund 60 and transfer it into the general fund to cover the cost so that it will not actually impact the bottom line of the general fund. And then if they do get the grant, then we'll keep that, almost $49,000 still sitting in Fund 60 for them for capital improvements for when things come up with their fire department payment or the engine payments or other items like that. So we already have put that money aside from this year into next fiscal year's budget. Just a quick overview, because we've talked about this quite a few times, is the new community sponsorship fund of what the cost is of the legacy events. Just let you know how much the city sponsored events are, around 32. And then we're also talking about a first come, first serve funding pool of $10,000, and then a sponsorship to outside non-governmental organizations, NGOs, of $5,000. So our proposed capital.
There's a question.
I'm just curious, in the past, we have this new community sponsorship fund and all of this ongoing expense. In previous years, in previous budgets, where was all this absorbed at? Just out of the general fund?
It was absorbed in the general fund and within the departments, correct. So before we weren't actually clearly identifying the cost of it. It was just absorbed into individual departments. So there was a lot of overages when it came to overtime and other items due to having to have the staffing for special events.
Okay.
So this is pulling it out. So when we created this too, we didn't also keep the additional overtime in PD. We would take out what it was for PD and put it over in this fund. So we're not double we're not double dipping. We're not having the same overtime fund sitting in a PD overtime budget and then in this current budget too.
Okay.
So it's a better allocation of what we truly are spending without it being doubled. These are some of the other, we talked about last time, our proposed capital improvement projects that we have. Again, our MOE, maintenance of effort for street maintenance, is something that you guys can recommend every year, whether we pay that or pay into that one or not. We do have some other items in City Hall that we're looking at fixing. The downstairs air conditioner is about ready to go out at any time, and once that does, it's pretty much gone, so we will not have air conditioning downstairs. Things like awnings for entrances for safety reasons, some overall repairs to City Hall. $20,000 is obviously not going to repair everything here, but we do have a lot of one-time expenses that come up here, repairs that are very unknown. Something will flood, or I'm trying to think of other items that we've had, but we've had some sewage backup issues. Elevator. Thank you. Elevator doesn't want to work or it gets people stuck in it. You know, we want to make sure that we're taking care of that. The other one that we have on here is the ADA, the American Disability Act Transition Plan, which is $80,000. And then the Fifth Street design. So on that one, that is I have the note on that. So that is the SACOG grant that we do, or the SACOG funding that we have. So what it is it's a $700,000 match that SACOG would pay us, and our local match is just over, it's about $90,692 is our local match. We've spent around $4,000 of it in this current fiscal year. So the remaining $87,000 that we have on there is to finish up the Fifth Street design. And then the one for the Bike and Ped Improvement Plan, the ATP grant, again, that is one that it's going to be, the project is scheduled to be $583,000. We will be reimbursed for $515,000. So our share cost would be the $68,000 that's listed on here. And these are listed as capital improvements, but those are also, again, those are one-time expenses, except for the MOE as an ongoing year to year. The rest of those on there, they're capital improvements, but they are also a one-time expense. Well, repairs of City Hall actually are pretty much more of an ongoing. We're always going to have issues here. We want to make sure we don't, cut that one out. Okay, so then we're just going to go through a few other budgetary changes by department. So these are items that were not listed as a new one-time expense or an ongoing expense. These are just, as we were going through every budget, kind of some changes that we've identified that need to happen, either increase or decrease for further clarification. So in the city attorney's office we're talking about adding an additional $25,000 to that budget. So what we're doing is we're actually taking it out of the general services budget. In the past, before we had all these departments for HR and IT and for legal, it all sat in general services, and we had an item just called professional services, and everything in the kitchen sink was thrown in there, and it was a large amount, and you never exactly knew what was in there. So now this is also part of that cleanup, is we've pulled everything out except 2 items, and now we've reallocated all those to a specific department so we know what the specific purpose is. So this goes above and beyond the normal contract that we would have, or if we have additional legal services that need to come in because it's not something that's normally held, or our current city attorney it doesn't take care of, or it's something that another service would. So we wanted to we wanted to transfer the $25,000 out of the general budget, or the general services budget, into the city attorney's office budget. Same thing for city council. So what the only change there is we pulled out of the community development services department is the stipend that we spoke about earlier, and then the training budget for the planning commissioners, so that those 2 expenses now live under the city council's budget. So in other departments, when it comes to community development services, we put all of them together instead of individually saying like parks or buildings. So we do have a decrease in our chemical and fertilizer usage. We're going to drop that around $5,000 due to the fact that the state has certain mandated requirements for us for what type of chemicals we can use when we spray. And right now, staff is working on getting all the certifications. But right now, we can't spray what we originally had budgeted for because we can't use those certain type of chemicals. So we need to decrease the budget.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
We already have duckweed started out there right on the edges now. that needs to be treated because it's going to be overrun again and you can't get in and out of there.
So there still is a budget for it, it's just we're not budgeting for a certain type of chemical that no one has a certification to spray.
Well, how long is it going to be for our guys to get certified?
That one I will refer over to Director
They're
Peters.
going through classes currently. The catch is, though, they do have to pass too, so.
Got the respirators and everything, right? The white
Correct.
suits?
Correct. So we are all hands on deck. I think we sent 3 of them
Yeah.
to do the testing to make sure that, we can get somebody that gets the certification. And then,
That duckweed will take over that pond in no time at all. And it's all around the edges now. Okay, thank you.
So even without that, that budget was well over budgeted in the past, and we'd never come near that cap even if we did have the ability to. So we're bringing it down to a more realistic level for a budget and not over budgeting for something that we wouldn't, even if we had all the certifications, we wouldn't actually spend that full amount. So again, we're doing 3-year. What we did when we did these budgetary changes is that we did look at a 3-year, for every single object code, we looked at a 3-year history of every one of them to see what the history's been, where we've gone, and we did find a few places where we've just really under budgeted yearly, like overtime, or we've over budgeted on items like this. So a lot of these are just self-corrections within a department to just have a better idea of what's going on in a department. Instead of saying, oh, we budgeted 10,000 this year, we'll do 10,000 next year and 10,000 next year. So it was we did a line by line through every single, those sheets that I gave you guys with all the very detailed sheets. We went through those line by line, every one of them, to see where we could pull some back or where we needed to reallocate. A lot of it was actually reallocating. It's not necessarily that we had 200,000 we could drop, it's just we weren't allocating it correctly, so we've cleaned up a lot of that allocation. The other part that we're also, we need to increase is our services and maintenance for the new bathrooms at Beckworth Riverfront Park. And then the other part that we are recommending is that we combine the cemetery fund with the public buildings and grounds. So we've always had a $10,000 budget in cemetery, we're not taking that away. Whereas instead of having its own fund, we're gonna have it with buildings and grounds and have it live within it. And everything is earmarked specifically in that budget, so we do know what the cemetery amounts are for headstone replacement or the watering. There's portable toilets that are out there, so it is currently budgeted in there. We just don't have it as its own separate fund anymore. And we are also managing, let me see, we do receive donations for headstones for replacement there, and we are tracking those, so as they come in, so if we get a request that's for $5,000, but we've only budgeted $2,000, but we've brought in to say $10,000 worth of donations because we do receive them, then we know we have the funding to be able to pay for it. So we are also internally tracking that to make sure that the amounts that are coming in from the donations for headstones are actually being used for that purpose. So there is that. I want to make sure you had the clarification that it's not just being buried in there, that there is still the clarification within the budget for the cemetery.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes.
On the cemetery fund, they funnel their donations through a private nonprofit. This $10,000 here, we're budgeting out of our general fund.
Correct.
To support that. How does their money they're not going to be turning their donations into the city, are they?
They do.
Well, they shouldn't be.
There are
They should be going to a 501c3 and they get tax exempt on the donors.
So for right now, I just know that we do receive their payables from the Friends, I think it's Friends of the Cemetery. I can't remember the exact amount, but we do randomly get them, and we've set up its own separate deposit, payable deposit code for them that specifically is only for those deposits so that we can track them.
Well, see, the thing is, they donating that to the city, they don't get the tax exempt on it for a donation to a 501c3.
And I don't know if that's something that they're
So
donating
I think
to.
Mayor, the staff should look into that and find out just exactly where that donations are going.
Okay.
And see if we can negotiate with them to turn it over to that pass-through 501c3 if they have. Because the donors are missing out on a tax exemption.
Yeah, we can definitely look into the path of
We
how
don't
it's,
give tax
of how it's
exemption.
getting, no, we do not. How it's getting from the people who are donating to us, we'll look into the path.
Yeah, I can see the 10,000 coming from us, but their
Correct, and
donations and their fundraisers should go to a 501c3. So if Mr. Buckabully wants to put $10,000 in there, he gets a tax write-off for it.
thank you, Mr. Bedicole. I appreciate that.
We put you on the spot.
Okay. So some other line-by-line items is that, again, when we're talking about cleaning up general services, is we're reallocating $17,000 out of general services in the finance department. And that is because we pay a company, we work with a company called HDL that helps us with our sales tax projections, our property taxes and other items. Again, that's more of a finance issue since the finance department works with them. So instead of having it in general services, we're now putting it in the finance department where the expense truly lies. So again, that's another reallocation. So within the fire department, we're recommending that we increase our annual maintenance category for radios, hazmat, medical exams, annual testing. In the past, these are expenses that we've had, but again, there has not been an actual account for them. So we've set up a few accounts within the fire department to be able to have more differentiating instead of it just being in professional services or repairs and maintenance other, of having better clarity of what's within those budgets for us. Again, on that, we're also talking about increasing training for our fire suppression staff, just some additional classes that they do need to be taking. And then again, we're increasing repairs and maintenance of our vehicles and equipment of around $8,000. Again, due to the age of our fleet, repairs or parts are harder to come by and they do cost more. In the future, when we do get the new engine and the quick attack, we will be able to start reducing this amount that we pay for, and we do get rid of some of the aging equipment, then we should be able to start offsetting, hopefully with a decrease in repairs and maintenance in the future. But for right now, to keep what we currently have going until we get the new engines, we need to increase that budget. So under general services, we are recommending that we increase the budget line for the annual LAFCO payment. It has been underfunded every year. We pay around $53,000 a year. We've been budgeted $20,000 every year. Just want to let you know that our staff is currently looking into this payment, what it's for, and why we do have it. This came out after it was a discussion that we had today, so this may be something that we will be changing in the future. Just want to let you know that staff is looking into finding out exactly what this payment is, but currently we still are budgeting for it because at this time it is an expense that we know we have. We're going to find out exactly why and if it is something that we actually truly should have. If that is the case, then we will obviously rebudget this section.
And what benefit we get out of it.
Correct. That's what we want. That's what we want to find out. So it's definitely on staff's. When the budget is done, that is on the plate to find out what that expense is for sure. But just looking over history again, it's been under budget every year for I don't know how many years back I looked on that one.
I'm confused about it, and I've been in LAFCO for I don't know how many years, so I think you need to find out, like, unless we did some service reviews that we paid for or some other things that we paid for separate from our own dues. I know there was an issue related to the separation of their staff to the separation from us. Mm-hmm. We were administering the LAFCO dollars, and then the staff was under us as an employee, and then we had to separate her, and then she's now with the county. I don't know if that's part of the I don't know if that reflects
the history I looked at, I don't remember seeing there being a difference between when LAFCO was on staff and when they were not on staff.
Right. So anyway, just I texted Marty this morning. I said, what is that?
Yeah, and we've already had that discussion today. That is something that it's written on the whiteboard to be taken care of and look into. Okay. So once we have that answer too, we'll definitely put it in an email to everybody in the council to let you guys know what the status is of the LAFCO.
So you said this is a 33,000 increase, so it's actually 53,000?
It's 53,000. So technically, we've been budgeting 20,000 per year, and it's been under budgeted every year. And the average bill's been around 53,000 a year.
Anyway, yeah.
So yes, so it is on radar to be looked at and evaluated at this time.
So our new appointee.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
So in our police department, we're looking at increasing the overtime by around 32,000. Again, this is to help with backfilling increased vacancies, which you are aware of, that we're having some turnover in the police department. So we wanted to make sure that we budgeted for the overtime that's going to be needed. And then we do have a reduction which is great to be able to come with that. And animal care services is we now have a trap and release program that we've now established, that we have a full-time animal control officer. So the amount of money that we thought that we were going to need for sheltering cats that was in prior budgets, we don't actually need that full budget anymore. So we are able to reduce the animal control officer's budget by $22,000. So there is a silver lining, Ricky. We got a reduction in there. So to move on to the next, so that is our changes that we've gone through. We also last night did have a public comment workshop. We did have three people, because Ted also did show up, but we did have 2 people who came to the presentation. At that time, we had forgone actually we were going to do the slide presentation from 2 weeks ago. We did forgo that because the gentleman who did show up had already seen the previous slideshow, and so what we did is we just opened it up for questions to them and just had one-on-one discussions with any questions, comment, issues that they were having. So I did list those on there from Mr. Whitmore and Mr. Nicoletti, and then also under that is from Mr. Pedigo this was a comment or a summary of the workshop, but then we also got an email inquiry since we put the budget out, and he was having questions about how the cemetery budget is being handled, which we did review in this current year budget. And with that, and so what we're looking at next is, after we have direction and recommendation from the council, we were proposing to bring the final fiscal year budget to the council on June 18th for approval. And if we still need an additional week for review or changes or anything else that may come up, we have a tentative city council meeting set for June 25th. So this way we will have a budget approved and ready by fiscal year July 1st, 2019.
We'll have a cake and coke.
Sounds great to me.
Could
That brings us to questions and discussions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Can we get, when you come back with it, can we get a total cost that you have budgeted for all our consulting within the budget? And can we get a total of all the money that you have for master plan work, whether it's the general, the bike, the parks, however many we have in there? So can you just get those 2 totals?
For the consultants, and what was the second one?
The first one was for the total budgeting for consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is the total amount of money budgeted for master plan.
Oh, okay. We can definitely have that together for you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, speaking of that, and consultants, have we contracted with anybody to do the survey of B Street property? Where is that sitting right now in this budget?
I will direct that to the city manager.
And the next item on the budget, on the agenda this evening is the total disposition analysis. And so if that was approved by council, that would move forward, working with a consultant on that disposition analysis, which would include some of the information you're requesting.
Okay, is that a closed deal? Meaning we had a lot of input from this audience when we were working on that project about using a local realtor who's educated in doing those assessments. Has that been thrown out the window, or is?
That's not the staff
We'll
recommendation.
talk about it when we get on the
Okay.
agenda. Thanks, Mayor.
Yep. Any other questions from council members?
Half question, half comment. So this is all prior to the finalization of our labor negotiations. So
correct.
This is based on our present level of salaries and wages.
Correct. So if labor negotiations are not finalized by the time we bring this, you would approve this budget, and then we would come back to the council once labor negotiations are done with an amendment to the budget of where we need to increase.
Mm-hmm. And so I kind of talked a little bit with Marty, said, have you thought about areas that could go from this? If we're increasing salaries, are we kind of looking at where we might take away from what we're looking at here? Are there areas where we can do that? Or that's kind of what I'm thinking as we're talking. It's like, okay, how much from this can wait or go, or, although I love what we're doing with Measure C and because I feel like right now we have this money, we're establishing our savings, we're building, like a lot of us is building and establishing us to be in a good position for more economic development, better public safety and public service. So I think all this is really great and necessary. So that's my thought. That's what I'm just thinking. So it's kind of more of a comment than a question.
And that will come from the recommendation that comes from the council, whether it's we need to reduce the budget by X amount of dollars, or we would like to see these items taken off for next time. So again, that's just going to come from the direction that you provide to us.
Yeah,
Also, if I could just add, I think that that's probably, since we have a closed session item on labor negotiations later, and we can cover a little bit of what you're talking about there, that's because it's so intricately connected to the negotiations. I think it's better addressed in closed session.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to invite the public to comment on this matter.
Hello, my name is Dale Whitmore. I'm always impressed with Jennifer's presentations here. I think we got another good one here. Just here on an old subject that we have beat upon in the past, and it's the old subject of irrigation at the parks that came about, if I can remind you, that about 5-6 years ago, when we were in the midst of running deficit budgets every year, it became the practice not to start watering the parks until May the 1st, and then on September 30th, you turned off the water. Didn't make any difference when the rains were raining or whatever, you had this situation. So you ended up with a lot of brown parks early in the year, a lot of small trees that died. Anyway, we were here back on February the 19th. We spent about nearly an hour discussing this topic, and we were told that it would cost about $20,000 to water the parks during the month before in April and the month after. Now this year, of course, if we follow that policy, I think we saved some money because we probably didn't start turning on water here until just very recently. But anyway, we have this practice and there's nothing in the budget that changed this. And as I would remind you that Measure C dealt with police, fire, and improving the parks. And why this topic hasn't already been handled and corrected is beyond me. I went back and looked at the recording, and Councilman McKenzie made a comment that staff needs the money necessary to take care of the parks. And then Mayor Ricky said he did not want maintenance issues coming to the council. These are something that shouldn't be coming here. He also made the statement that he was waiting for a policy correction in the master park plan to take care of this situation. Well, the master park plan never addressed the issue. So here we are again, and my recommendation is that we add $20,000 to the park water budget to create a new practice or policy of watering the parks in the spring when the rain stops and ending the park watering when the rain starts. I mean, it just is simple common sense. And now that we've passed Measure C, we need to make this correction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other input on this matter?
Kelly Rich Creek, downtown Marysville. Dale touched on one of my comments that I had on the Measure C. One thing is, I don't understand why we can't have an estimation of the breakout for Measure C of expenditures and revenue before the audit. That would be helpful because and Ricky already addressed that. General plan update, or the Measure C, the item that Dale brought up, I've not seen, even in our brochure, everything I see talking about Measure C, we're leaving off parks. And I went back and looked up what the citizens voted on, and it's definitely on there, and I can email it out later if you want that. General plan update loan, I had a question on that. I didn't think that we voted in the general plan yet. I thought we were just coming back with how to pay for it. The Laserfish, $17K, and then $2,300 a year. Do we really need that? Is that really necessary? I'm hearing things from the public and things that we really need to take a closer look at some of these expenditures, some of which were, and I don't know what they are because they're not labeled, but some of the questions are: the park maintenance budget has professional and specialized services for $84,000, and I guess we're going by the recommended amount in that column is what we're basing the budget on for what they're looking at. I'm just guessing you're doing the recommended for 2019-20. That's the column you're using, right? So it's gone from 20 grand to 84,000. So if there's a breakout for consultant services, and someone already brought that up, I also wanted to see how much of that breakout are we spending on consulting services, if we could break it out for each level, and general plan is up there. We're probably pretty close to having a close estimate. I don't know if the estimated amount was based on actuality, since we're going to be at the end of 2019 fiscal year in less than a month. So is that, I don't know if it's based on that. There were so many things. Sorry, I'm just trying to get them all. What's considered the professional services under parks and maintenance for? Oh, I already brought that one, 84,000, and then the general capital project services and supplies for 80,000. That was my other question. And these are just ones that were a large amount from previous to now. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Daryl Shackelford. I'm the president for the Marysville Police Officers Association. Just wanted to, talking about the budget, a few things I wanted to explain is sometimes when you spend a little money, you get a little money in return. One example I want to pass along is our recruitment and retention is bad because of salary. So, for example, a police officer costs about $40,000 to onboard. That completes everything up to about 6 months. And then we have to send them to 5 trainings over the first year to 2 years. So that's another about $10,000 because we have to backfill them in overtime. That's $50,000. We lose about 5 officers a year. Almost every single one of them say it's because of salaries. So that's $250,000 that we're spending. We shouldn't be losing 5 officers a year. If we lose 2 officers a year, that sounds about normal. Maybe you'll move on. That's $100,000. If we increase salaries to levels that will retain folks, you'll save $150,000. You may increase $100,000, but you're not going to increase $250,000. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if you all knew that, but that is something to look into. The other thing I'd like to say is the budget presentation is a lot better than the past. It just seems more transparent. And I'd also like to thank the city manager and their staff. The labor negotiations don't seem like negotiations. They seem like a collaboration with the city and the POA. So very looking forward to good things, and I just wanted to thank them for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments on this matter? We'll see none. I think any further comments from the council members to give staff direction?
To the chair.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd just like to remind Mr. Whitmore that we still are running at a negative in our budget. So it's not like we have a lot of money all of a sudden to start paying for that water issue. We are still running at a negative. So on the general plan, I just had a question. I see we haven't actually approved moving forward, have we, with 1.2 million, but we have budgeted the payment. Is that correct?
Yes, this is part of the proposed budget, and so nothing's been approved. It's all completely up to the discretion of the council. But yes, currently, it is currently put in the proposed budget.
The payment,
That's correct.
did I understand it would be a 10-year payment?
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Well, thank you. I think both with the goals and tasks, and I think even with the comments from the public, I think staff are hopefully have listened and heard some of the things that have been said. I'm not going to get into, I think, I was trying to follow Kelly there, and I think I'm more than willing to meet with you if you want. I wasn't sure exactly that the numbers you were throwing out there, but anyway, so I apologize for that. And so if you want to meet together, I can maybe hear you out a little bit more. Saying that, let's move forward. Is that it? That's all you need from us, right? Okay. Let's move to item C. Resolution authorizing an agreement with New Economic and Advisory in amount not to exceed $23,000. This comes from our city manager, Ms. Brown.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, back in April, I brought forward a similar staff report to consider doing a land use disposition analysis of the B Street property, hiring this consultant, New Economic and Advisory, to help us do the economic marketing and land disposition analysis. At the time, I believe Councilmember Buttacavoli requested that the Bryant Stadium was part of that analysis to consider what an appraised value for the stadium and what disposition possibilities might look like for the stadium. Councilmember Buttacavoli asked that that be removed from the analysis, and so it's taken a little bit of time, but I'm back with a revised version of that proposal, which now has eliminated the Bryant Stadium as a consideration as part of this disposition analysis and focuses only on the B Street property. And as you can see, the price has also been revised from in the low 30s in the previous proposal down to an amount not to exceed $23,000. I don't really have any other specifics to share with the council unless you have some questions for me.
Questions?
Yeah, I just curious as to what, when we had a couple of real estate brokers in here talking about being able to do that service, and we kind of just pushed it off the side and went along with this consulting service. Did we do an RFP on this? I know it's not required, but did we do it for all fairness?
No, we did not. And I think I would like to point out to the council that while we had feedback from members of the public in regards to using a broker who could do it for free, brokers also do that kind of work with the idea that they will hopefully be able to market the property and get commission for it. So I wouldn't say it's entirely, quote, free. There is usually the idea that you're going to be able to market and make money from the process. So I just wanted to clarify that because I feel like that was a little bit of a misunderstanding there. Both Jim and I, the Community Development Director, and I have discussed it multiple times, and our professional staff recommendation is that we use a separate third party that could not have a potential conflict of interest because they are being paid for the analysis period. They would not be moving forward with marketing it. They have no opportunity for financial gain down the road. So that's was our recommendation.
That satisfies me, but I just want to make sure that we didn't negate what the public was saying about that. I think that's important because they did spend a lot of time, and there's a lot of scuttlebutt going on, as you probably aware of. Where did this company come from? You have previous knowledge of this company?
New Economic and Advisory is actually a firm, a principal at the firm that Jim has worked with before, and I've met a few times now myself. Jim, do you want to add anything to that?
Just to say that they're very seasoned and professional, and they are currently doing work for the city of West Sacramento, doing a large master plan community, so they're putting together their finance package of cost and fees for that particular project. They've also worked for the city of Lincoln, doing economic development work as well, and she's very versed at this type of analysis.
Well, if I just wanted to reiterate, I just want to make sure that we didn't push off the side the citizens' report on this. It seemed like it just fell on deaf ears because there's nothing ever said, and this came before us to pass the contract. So you've explained it to me. I'm satisfied with it, but we need to listen to the public a little bit more. That's what that was all about tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to ask, when's
Questions?
the last time we've had the property listed?
I'm not actually quite sure. It's certainly prior to me. Jim, it's prior to you, I believe. We don't actually know. Maybe, I don't know, Mary?
I think
you
it's
can-
currently listed.
It's currently listed?
Well, I thought there's, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was publicly listed,
I
but
don't think it's been
I don't
listed
think
for
so.
probably a couple of years. I'm just wondering.
At least a year, because they told us sign down. It was one of the local realtors over there.
I don't know if that means it was listed. That means there was a sign.
We are currently not paying a broker or agent.
we're currently not paying a broker, no.
No.
We haven't had an agreement with one.
And we haven't had one since my tenure of September of 17.
Well, I just have a little bit of difficulty still on the fact that we're gonna spend this, and we haven't even had it listed on the market since the economy's been doing well. So I'm just teetering still on this. If I understand right, the main part of this study is gonna be to tell us what's the best use of it. And it seems to me like any developer that was willing to spend that kind of money is gonna have their own use for it. So I still don't quite understand what we're getting out of it.
So, hold on. I don't know if I'll ask it as a question. Is part of the scope here include kind of costs associated with impacts or improving the facility or improving the infrastructure, things that are going to come up with any developer, where what other additional barriers, parking requirements, depending on the use. I mean, what other impact costs are associated with that type of, if it's a housing development, they're going to need certain amount of parking, or if it's going to be mitigated, how those parking is going to.
But what developer wouldn't do that is what I'm at, whether it's commercial, residential, or.
But I guess in my mind, having those numbers, and if we can find ways to mitigate some of those costs, if we know like it needs a new piping or or are they going to underground the facilities, I think those costs, if we have those costs associated, then we can go to the private market and make it a lot easier for them to say.
And all of those costs will be looked into this?
I guess that's a question that I'm asking, if that's part of the analysis.
I guess, let me ask it this way, Jim. What, a little bit more specifically, will we get out of this?
Well, I think what'll be helpful for this property and for the council is that I think, this is a little bit of where we went, of a takeaway from a closed session kind of discussion with the council, which was, from my seat, I'm getting different inquiries about the property, but they're all isolated little pods of questions and property that they want to take down, meaning purchase. And when we had a discussion with council, it was one such that, well, what happens if it's just a corner piece of the property that everybody wants? And then what happens with the remainder, and how developable would that be, and how marketable would it be? And what really would the city gain from selling off the corner piece of property? Using that as an example, it could be any point of that reference of the property. This particular analysis is going to give us insight on if the city chooses to just go forward with a straight fast food restaurant on the corner, be prepared that the other remainder of the property likely will not be an integrated development. It's possible that.
That doesn't even quite make sense to me, and I would have disagreed with that if I was on the council at the time, but I don't think I was, because it would be the fact that the corner is the most expensive piece of the property, and obviously this B Street would be the next most.
But then the question
as you move back, you would lose that. So the back piece is not going to charge what the corner is going to be. So it seems a little bit, that was an odd way to look at it, that we sell it as one piece or no piece.
Well, I think we would want to know, and what I heard from the council is that when you have different development groups coming to split off the property, what makes reasonable sense fiscally for the city to just say, go ahead and take the corner piece, because we are comfortable letting that remainder property sit for another 5 years.
So is that what this will help us
Yes.
to
Yes, that's
figure
correct.
out?
Yes.
What that value might be of that piece and?
Yes.
And what the rest would then be worth?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
I do remember that closed session, we ended up having that conversation. What is it, 3.7 acres? Somebody remind me, is that what it is?
3.7 acres.
Yeah,
14
and-
parcels.
It's 14 parcels, and I do remember the conversation. At that time, we decided that we didn't really want to break it up if we could sell it as a one-ticket item, because those 14 parcels, we do have a lot of small vacancies throughout the city. So I am curious to see where we're going. Now, I'm not keen on spending money, right, but I am curious to see where we could go from a larger development plan besides just selling off small little pieces by local or not so local brokers. And I think
Yeah, but it's not
that's where
necessarily
we're gonna
selling
go.
off little pieces. I mean, it might be 4 of them, or 6 of them, or 10 of them at one time. So
Theoretically,
I guess
possibly.
my question, and I think it was answered, is if it's going to, if this study is going to tell us those options and how they would work financially, to break it into whether it's 1, 2, 4, or 10, that's what my question. So how that would work.
And what
that
type of
would-
uses? And what's
That
the
would make
best?
sense to me.
And what's the best use? So task 2 in their proposal is, that's exactly what you just described. Disposition options, the analysis, the land use, the market demand, the infrastructure needs, characteristic of the site.
So, through the chair again, I mean, it says not to exceed 23,000, which is, I'm going to defer to your guys' expertise knowledge, Jim and Marty, on if that's what it costs to have this generally done. If it does become something that exceeds 23,000, what does that mean for us? Where do we sit? Do they give us what they got?
Well, the agreement would be crafted in such a way with the consultant so that that's the amount, not to exceed 23,000. And if for some reason there were extenuating circumstances and it started to creep and look like it was going to extend, or if something came along that required additional scope of work that perhaps we didn't anticipate or the consultant didn't, I would be coming back to the council and asking for an amendment. Because once you have that agreement, you know, either you make a decision to not do certain work if it's going to creep up beyond the 23,000, or come back to the council and ask for additional, you know, funds with an explanation of what the additional scope of work is and all that kind of thing.
And that's on your decision level and your conversations with this person, deciding whether IRA or ERA or whatever the case doesn't need to be done because it's too expensive past 23,000. Is that what?
Right, well, yeah, I mean, regardless, if there was something that came up with a consultant that seemed like a reasonable reason for going past it, I'd be coming back to the council and giving you an explanation. Otherwise, I'd be saying, yeah, I don't think that we're gonna be able to do that. That doesn't make any sense, because you're exceeding the limit of the contract now.
Okay. On the other side of that too, there's no chance of it being less than 23,000 in your guys' experience, or what they're saying.
I doubt it. It'll
Okay.
probably, you know,
Had to
if
ask the
it
question.
is, it'll be like $1,000 less or something like that.
All right.
Yes.
So this is also helping us market, when we market, right? This document will be useful for saying, okay, this is to whoever's going to develop or buy or whatever they're going to do. These are the things that need to be done, and these are the costs associated with that. So it helps in the evaluation of whether or not somebody wants to buy it, what the potential they can do with it, right?
Yes, the idea would be that they would come back with the highest and best use. They would come back with the implications of if we sold pieces off and what that could mean long-term if we weren't doing it all and doing the development all as, you know, one entity, all 14 parcels together. And then, you know, I'd be bringing back that to the council with a recommendation from the consultant. And then if the council agreed with the consultant's recommendation, the next step after that would be probably likely to go out with an RFP with those recommendations, and so that we're very focused and targeted in what we're chasing after, instead of, you know, kind of taking a let's throw everything at the wall and see what sticks approach. And also, I think the other important factor here for the council to keep in mind is this is really the only substantial piece of property that's vacant that the city owns and really has some control over the kind of community benefits that you might be able to get out of a deal that you would do through a redevelopment deal and pro forma with a developer. We can't do this with anybody else's private property, but this is a place where we can, as a city, say, you know, we're gonna have you do certain things that we want at this property as part of this, you know, highest and best use the consultants, you know, has recommended to the council. And so, you know, it gives the council more control over what the final end product is at the property, unlike really having a lot less control over private transactions, right? Very little control over that.
Agreed.
And so, you know, as representing the public, it's an opportunity to represent the public's interests in that property. And it's, frankly, it's really the only useful one that the city owns that we could do this with.
And the property will be totally unencumbered after we do the bonds, right?
Yeah, the change tonight, I can't remember. Is it, Jennifer, do you remember after the bond reissuance? It's completely taken out from under that, right? Yeah. Which will also make it
Much
easier to develop for sure, yeah, and much more attractive to a developer.
And also, and then this 23, you said there was a portion of the funds, but that was from the bonds, right? That was set aside for marketing?
Yeah, the bond money that is the current B Street property bond, as you might recall, Bud said earlier this evening, the recommendation of staff was to pull down that $140,000+ from the current bond,
right,
put that aside for marketing and analysis of the B Street property. We are recommending that we use a portion of those monies for this, so it doesn't come out of the general fund.
Well, it should, that's what it's for.
Correct, but
So
I
it's
wasn't
not-
sure if that was clear.
Yeah, I think that's very well done, because that's what that money was set aside for development and marketing of B Street.
What's the will of council? I will entertain a motion to approve the contract by adopting resolution 2019-21. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Hudson,
I'll second.
second by Ms. McKinsey. All's in favor, say aye. 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 Against? Votes approved with the vote of 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
I guess you missed the public comment.
I know, I just realized that.
Oh, well, here's a public comment.
I apologize for that.
Take it as an addendum.
My bad. Apologize. I don't even know where I'm at anymore. Where am I?
10.
10? Agenda? Okay.
10, sorry. Right on you.
Any committee reports?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Bruce and I have one to report
Okay.
out. As you know, we were invited to attend a meeting with California Recycling as well as Recology and Ostrom Road, and our chief of police accompanied us, as well as Bob Bendorf, city administrator from Yuba County. I want to make it quite clear, this was not a decision-making meeting, it was an information gathering as to what's going on with the roads and the transportation, and what plans have they made to remediate some of the traffic in Marysville. And it came out that there's 20,000 tons per day going into Ostrom landfill, 4,000 trucks per day, and they're going to cut that down to start at 8 o'clock and go to 6 o'clock. And then on Monday through Friday, it'll be 8:30 to 9, the first truck will hit the road. And I noticed there has been a reduction in trucks coming through town, and the traffic jam has not been as bad as it was. I think that between 8 and 7 p.m., they won't, we talked about maybe doing some night travel, And they said because of hazardous material, they can't do that, and on and on and on. So this gentleman by the name of Todd, I don't remember his last name, but he's the engineer that's doing all the routing of these trucks. And he's very knowledgeable of what the requirements in transportation are. So anyway, it was a good meeting. We didn't resolve anything, just gathered some information. Bruce, you got to add anything to that?
No, just to reiterate the same thing, so I won't go too much, but what was the gentleman's name?
Todd.
Todd. This guy is an expert at this kind of, Chris, you were there, planning, this kind of shipping and planning. And he seemed like he had a few ideas that were going to be beneficial to us, and it does look like it's already been beneficial. On top of the fact, and Chris could probably tell you more, that there is going to be some enforcement going on with the CHP that I believe they were going to coordinate with you two, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, so one of the statements was they were going to do a commercial truck enforcement, CHP was, in outer Yuba County and Butte County, so they referred us to our local CHP office, and so I have a meeting with our CHP commander on Friday, and I just got that meeting set up this afternoon, so I'll be talking to her to see what enforcement action they'll be able to assist with in the city, or what they're going to be able to do to help us out, so we'll stay tuned for that.
And I think the big issue was parking in the intersections on these crossroads, backing the traffic all the way up. Even our emergency vehicles couldn't get through. And that would be the big concentration, I'm understanding, from the Highway Patrol. They're going to hopefully crack down on that.
Can I let me lastly say, this, we also, after Chris had left, we had a small discussion on putting a bug in their ear that we wanted to be reimbursed for some of the damages that were being caused from our traffic being pushed off, from them going on, there's a couple truck routes that they go on that are our roads also. So there was, that was kind of cut to the fact that I was told that the county wanted to deal with us directly on that. So we'll get together and go that direction. But there could be some funds available for repair work, but it's going to be through the county if there is. There's a lot of money in this thing that Recology isn't.
Oh, they're not doing from the bottom of their hearts and doing it for free?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
Thank
it's
you.
from the bottom of their hearts.
Thank you.
But I think there's a possibility that we could negotiate something with.
Seemed like some of the, their editorials and coming out of Yuba County seemed like, we're just causing harm.
The whole issue really boiled down to the fact the jobs. They had to put 3 new weigh stations in at Awesome Road. They had to hire 3 new weight masters, plus loading techs, plus all that. And when they start cutting back on the loads going in, then those people are going to have to get laid off, and they still have to pay for the loading platforms, the trucks back up. So it's more of an economic thing rather than blaming anybody for anything. And I think that once that Todd started working these trucks and making sure these trucks are staying on where they're supposed to go, you still see them cutting through East Marysville.
Well, I appreciate you guys going out there.
Mr. Mayor, let me just say, let's make no mistake about it. It's all about money.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
And them moving the trucks through town faster.
Thank you.
Just so you know, is not to make Marysville happier. It's the more trucks they can get through faster, smoother, easier, the more money everybody on their end is making, the more loads they can get through. So there's no doubt, that we weren't aware of that. But we also let it be known that we felt we needed to be part of this.
Yeah, they're still
Well,
going to run 20,000.
let me finish your comments with, I know the staff have been on this from the beginning. They've worked with Todd and other Cal OES and Cal OSHA and FEMA folks, so I appreciate their efforts on that. I know the chief has currently the software so he can see all the truck routes, and he can actually, they give him access to that, to the GPS information and stuff. I know that the air quality board is also really interested in the air quality impacts that they're having, and they're putting a meter, one on B Street and the other one over there by U.S. Sutter Transit, to start measuring some of the air quality issues as well. I appreciate the effort from Jim's office to start looking at our roads from the beginning and doing a lot of the data gathering that's going to be required for us when we go back, when this is over. We'll be able to have some good information on what the actual impact was on our roads. So I appreciate those efforts from our staff, from counting, traffic counting, to videotaping our roads pre and post. And I know our police department's been pretty focused, and even working with them and giving them an opportunity to park on B Street property, and also enforcing when they do go through roads where they're not supposed to. So thank you for that as well. So I think that the more we communicate with the county, the more this is going to be helpful, and we continue having an open discussion with them. It'll be very helpful. But anyway, so thank you. Yeah. Let's, any other committee reports? No? Council correspondence? We received a letter from Marysville.
I wanted to mention also that
Thank
you
you.
received the letter. And every council member has this available in their box also.
City manager report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm going to ask basically the department heads to give my report. I know the last two meetings that we've had, we've actually had quarterly reports from city staff on there, and because of the late hour, it's not 11 o'clock yet, so I thought they could give an update.
Are you sure?
An update. And I'm going to start with Jim, if you're all right with that. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order, so do your letters in alphabetical order and start with the Community Development Department.
That's fine. Chris and I were negotiating who was going to go first. Nevertheless, so I think what I would like to point out from a department-wise, what is currently going on, and to kind of shed some light, is we are only functioning on the building side with a chief building official, and in that case, we're only doing inspections Monday through Wednesday. Monday through Wednesday. We're not doing inspections on Thursday and Friday. We're getting a lot accomplished, don't get me wrong, but I think, from a customer service and providing a service to the community, we do often get paid to do an inspection on Thursday or Friday and have to decline that and push that all the way to the next week. I think where we try to make exceptions of packing a schedule is when it is the roofing companies. I think they're critical because they're doing a tear off and they got to get back and put it back together and reconstruct. So I think we do make a little bit of leeway to try to get them in that Monday to Wednesday period. I think the other thing to point out in trying to solve the problem is what we're encountering is just a simple fact, and we're talking about budget today, is we do not offer a competitive package. I mean, it's simply put, we've gone out to consultants, which I've kind of heard a common theme tonight, and we've actually tried to secure inspectors that way. And what has happened is they come in, the region is impacted, it's busy time. We may get an inspector for probably a good couple of weeks, and then they bail out on us, and they end up in Placer County, they end up in Roseville, they end up wherever where the consultant and the contractor pulls them from us. In talking with the chief building official, and he comes from a different agency, he looked at our salary structure, and he basically said, look, at the challenge we're going to have is we would have to hire somebody green and rank them as an inspector 3 just to give them give a competitive package to that individual, which is something we cannot do, obviously, based on experience. So we're going through and exploring options. We've reached out to Yuba County, and we're working on that relationship there. Hopefully it comes to fruition. We may even reach out to Yuba City as an option as well, so we're exploring that. But it is, I think something that I need to make aware of council that, I wish we could report that we are open for business on inspections 5 days a week. We're just not. And then lastly, in regards to, the discussion today, I feel like I'm a resident now where I get to speak on anything because I have the floor, right? Consultants cost. And that's just the reality. A case in point, we are going to move forward with the B Street, 103 B Street for commercial cultivation. I informed city manager that I just don't have the capacity to move that alone. So I went to my treasure chest of consultants in the planning world, and said, hey, can you give us an assist? And so we brought in a particular individual. He works for Interwest Consulting. They're a big firm out of Roseville. I met with him, gave him all the project characteristics, gave him kind of where we're moving and how quickly and how vital it is and important to open this business. And he ran with it. And when he returned, he came back with easily a bid that was in the $20,000 to $25,000 for his work to carry that forward. So I get that there is a concern on consultants, but you know, they do come, they have markups, they, you know, have insurance, you know, you name it. So I just want to put that out there that as we move forward with approving a budget, there are definitely some key vital grants and other work that has been made a priority by the council that I can't do it all, and I do come at obviously a cheaper rate than them, believe it or not, even though I do make, you know, I would say a very good salary, but it, you know, it's just something I don't have capacity, and we're going to have to be leaning on consultants as we move forward, probably into the beginning of the year. So with that, that concludes staff's overview, but I would say my staff is rocking. We are a small little team, and we get stuff done. I appreciate the work that Ellen does, Jessica, as well as Ken, and they're doing a great job of just trying to keep things moving the best of our ability. So thanks.
Finance? Because it's finance before fire.
I think I was looking at last names, so I thought I was at the end. Okay, so is a brief overview of the finance department, as you can tell, was just up on the screen today. The majority of our time has been spent working on the budget, obviously. At the same time, we've also been working on the fiscal year 17-18 audit, which we are close to completion. There's still a slight delay as the auditor who's doing most of it is on in Africa for a month on vacation. And then we're also working with an outside contractor to get our fixed assets finalized. So we still have a few more minor hiccups to get past to be able to get the audit done. I do know it is a late audit, but due to the fact of not having finance director and then the changeover in staff, we've just had a little bit of extra time trying to get all this going and all of our ducks in line, but they are starting to come in order so that for next fiscal year, we shouldn't have a problem getting the audit started in the normal time, you know, September or so, to be able to have an audit done by the end of December. The other items that we've been working in our department especially is working on updating our business license application and process between all the departments. There still is a lot of work that needs to be done, but there's, when business licenses come on, trying to figure out who they go to, who they don't, who has to sign off. Kind of what an order is a little bit of organized chaos with that, so we're working through that item currently right now. We're working obviously on a lot of policies and procedures because we don't have a lot in-house right now, or a lot that are written policies, things, updating policies like our investments, so that is something that we're actively working on. We're cleaning up all of our CDBG files currently for all of our home loans that, sorry, not the home loans that we have out, but the CDBG loans that we have out from past years. Just updating all the amortization schedules that currently were not done prior to me getting into office. Just to make sure that as people do payoffs or other items, or as we're recording it on the books for the audits, that we actually have the correct amounts. So that is going to be a pretty big undertaking in our office to make sure that we have that fully cleaned up. Other things that we've been working on is obviously with the wastewater study. We worked very closely with Dan Bergman on providing him the information for that. Also working with Bud for all the refundings for the 2001 and then for the 2011 refunding, and then also with the PERS unfunded liability. We've also been working a lot with the insurance company and Chief Carlin to finalize the insurance claim that's been going on with the fire department damage, with that happened in October of 17. And then it's also the time of the year that we do a whole bunch of renewals. So we've been working on all of our insurance renewals, which means we've gone through all of our properties to make sure that we actually have those properties and they're classified. There was recently an audit on all of our properties to make sure that they're assessed correctly through the insurance company so that we're paying the proper amount. And then obviously we're always doing every year at least an inventory audit of our vehicles and making sure that that's up to date and that what we present to to the insurance company is correct so that we're not paying for our insurance on vehicles that we do not have. So that's kind of an overview, a lot of the big projects that we're doing. Obviously, the day-to-day payroll, dog licenses, business licensing, any kind of finance, parking tickets, obviously come through the office, so we also have that going on a daily basis. So it's pretty much a summary, and that's done by, we have 3 people on staff. There's me and 2 accountants on staff, so it's done with a 3-man crew.
Thank you.
Question, I know it takes work to do this stuff as well, but like, can some of those processes be automated through online systems?
It's actually on my I have a
Okay.
list that I have a list with Marty that we work on of short-term goals, like medium goals, and then long-term, and a lot of it is to start bringing on some better systems like taking credit cards or other things that we can have electronically done to make the process smoother. Again, it's just taking the time to get to that next stage, but it is on our futures list, and it does get brought up on a fairly regular basis to move these along once we had quite a backlog for a 16-month vacancy, so there's still. I got one. It lives with me everywhere now. So I can do finances wherever I'm at. So we are working in that direction to make it more efficient within the office. There is some efficiency issues that do need to be taken care of, so it's on the radar. You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Fire.
It's been a full-time project for most of the staff, and we weren't able to hire a project manager, so a lot of those responsibilities fall onto us for management and getting to the point closer to the staff as well. Hiring personnel was probably our next biggest thing that we finally are getting some closure with filling vacancies we've had. We struggled, like other people have stated, about recruitment to be able to find people for the right pay and the right conditions. So we have also just hired the fire engineer instructor position. So that person's come on board, has kind of wrapped up their initial training for firefighting tactic stuff, and now kind of begins some prevention training for the future position that they'll be doing. I still have, even though we filled those vacancies, I still have 2 injuries involving 2 captains, so we're still running short. So we're still filling a lot of overtime and kind of burning people out. Up to this point of getting ready to go into fire season, which is kind of concerning overall. We're still in the process of finalizing orders for our Type 1 engine, and we placed the order for the quick attack vehicles, so those things have been worked on and in progress. We've been able to surplus some of the older engines, been working with Chief Sachs, and being able to get 3 more resources up to the Chico for surplus this next go around auction, so we can kind of reduce our load fleet. We've been able to host a couple of trainings lately since we've all stand up our training room. We hosted Tuesday Farm Marshal certified classes and brought in about 53 people from all over California. And so that's been a benefit both having training local for us, getting free spots in the class. I taught one of the classes, and then bringing outside people that are staying up here, and then a whole week long of sleeping, living up here, and eating at local restaurants. We've been able to do other regional training over hazmat, soap, water, relationships with both UBA and Sutter counties, and we're ramping up for the wildland training that we need to complete for actually seeing the grasses drying out in between rainstorms and it's getting taller, so we're preparing for what will be another busy, probably above average fire season once again, like last year was. We've been getting involved with active shooter training, both with the PD and local schools, trying to get prepared on having training to know how to manage those types of incidences. And then business inspections, working with Jennifer's team in conjunction with the fire department, has been really busy for us. We've done like 21 inspections in a 6-week period of time. And each one of those inspections takes almost 3 visits to get it complete and the violations done. So you can magnify the time for going out there to these businesses. We're actually finalizing an internal document of a strategic plan that outlines in writing, documenting we were getting dual dispatches at the same time. It was like 9 times last week that happened. And so it's just very alarming. We don't have capacity to staff that second call. So total so far this year with concurrent calls, we're just over 200 calls, 237 calls for concurrent calls, which means that's how many so far we have not made it to. And last year we had a total of 357 calls the whole year. So we're already on pace to beat that number by some larger number for the year. Just as a fun fact, and that's about 20% of calls we're not making to right now for the current staffing model that we have. So that's kind of where we are in that shell for the fire department.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Police.
I could have went like second because cops were like in that C category.
Oh, yeah, right. I'll remember that next time.
Just Kelly's going to pass out a handout. Don't freak out that it's 3 pages. I'll talk fast and I'll just peruse it real quick. But our investigations unit has been overloaded. We've been prioritizing calls for service for them on the severity of the cases. Just in the last few months, we've had an increase in use of force incidents. We've had 7 use of force incidents due to the violent behavior of subjects that we're contacting out in the field. Detectives, you might have seen it in the newspaper, but we've arrested 27-year-old Daniel Hayward for molesting his 11-year-old stepdaughter. And based on the great case that patrol and detectives did, he just pled to 24 years in state prison instead of taking it to trial. They also arrested 45-year-old Luis Abayas for molesting children at his wife's daycare facility in Marysville. That led to a much larger case where we had to do MDICs, which are a multidisciplinary interview, on at least 8 other individuals that were at that daycare facility, which took a couple weeks' time to do those multidisciplinary interviews with probation, victim services, the DA's office, and put all that work together on that case. One of the other ones that they were working on the last few months is Adrian Angel. He actually started the East Merez Norteño gang out in East Marysville quite some time ago, and they just arrested him for molesting his niece. So as you can see the pattern, we've noticed a significant increase in child abuse and molestation cases. However, our detectives unit is working diligently and tirelessly between the 2 of them on these cases, along with the other caseload that they have with the multiple other cases that are coming in. So Lieutenant Cardozo is doing a great job of prioritizing those calls and those cases for them, and they're working around the clock on these to get them solved. Our K-9 Rocky got his first apprehension. It's the first dog bite that our department has had. It was Terry Wilson, who was wanted on a parole violation and is a known violent felon. So, Rocky got his first apprehension, and we're super excited and happy about that. We've applied for a lot of grants this year that you guys have obviously seen through a lot of our staff reports that have came before you. I'm not going to go over all of them. They're there for reference. Some of the projects that we've been working on, as you know, is the B Street truck parking permit program. To date, we've got 6 permits that are issued at $175 a month. We've been doing some department remodel with some painting inside, photos and shadow boxes. So I guess on the City Hall crawl, hopefully you guys will come in and I'll check it out, kind of give it a facelift. We're doing a going paperless program in our department. We've got a whole office downstairs that is full of old case files, back to the 40s and 50s, all the way current, that we have to maintain, a bunch of those. And then also the case files that you see in our records area. So we started with our records area, and we're scanning all those into our new AutoCAD, computer automated dispatching system for the reports. And so all the officers now, we're training them to do a lot of the scanning of their documents, so everything will be attached to the report, and we'll have less files in our department. And I'm currently working with DA Curry on how we can do an electronic access and ship those reports instead of printing them out and walking them over to the courts in the morning. We're trying to work out a process to email all that those case files together over there for them. So we're pretty excited about that. Like Chief Carlin said, we're doing active shooter training. We completed active shooter training with all of the Marysville Joint Unified School District. Fire department participated with that. We're getting ready to do big active shooter scenario with the sheriff's department. They're putting it on, but it's going to be a county-wide deployment at the amphitheater, and that's coming up this next month, where it's going to be a multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional deployment. We're probably going to have over 200 law enforcement and fire personnel on scene staging for this incident, so it's going to be quite the training opportunity for all of our staff. We completed surplus property auctions, getting rid of all of our excess property in the city, which was quite nice to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff at the courtyard and fire department and downstairs and everywhere, so it was just nice to spring clean. We did a large-scale purge on our evidence side too. We filled up a whole big U-Haul and armed escort down to Covanta to do a lot of incineration, so that was nice to be able to get rid of that stuff that had been stored there for quite some time. We've done 4 ordinance amendments in the last few months, which is our animal care services, parking, massage, and the cruising ordinance. We did have the cruise that was authorized through special event. A few of you came and attended. Some of you rode with me and participated. It was a great turnout. We had 77 cars that showed up, over a couple hundred spectators that came to check it all out, so everybody had a great time. We expect increased numbers for the next one, so everything went great. Our recruitment and retention, we're recruiting at the local academies. Our pool is limited though, because pay is the #1 comparison. I thought it was comical because I didn't catch on until he actually pointed it out to me, but I was teaching at the academy last month and I was trying to recruit this kid that hadn't had a job yet, and he says, well, I'm going to I'm applying at Woodland PD, and I said, well, you should apply at Marysville, and he's like, well, I think I'm going to do that, and I said, yeah, we're at $35.18. He goes, well, I'm applying at Woodland, it's only $22 an hour, and I'm like, no, it's not $35.18 an hour, it's $35.18 a month. And so it was just one of those things where they're just trying to understand the concept. So, we're trying to recruit while we're teaching out there, so they do give us that opportunity. So, but the pools are limited because everybody's hiring in the region and just depends on what the benefits are. That takes me to personnel. I put that photo on there because that is going to be your next frontline officer here in the near future. So she's been with us since she was 16 years old. She turns 20 in the month of October, and I'll get to that at the bottom. But currently we have 2 vacant police officer positions. One just left us after 10 months, Bradley Grant, the one that we gave the life-saving award to a couple months ago. He went to Yuba County Sheriff's Department this last month. We had another one that left only after being here for 4.5 months. He left to Capital Christian to be a security guard. And then we've got 2 officers that are in background with other agencies currently. Right now, one's Catherine Dannison. She's going to be going to Yuba City Police Department, we expect within the next 30 days. And then we've Zai Lee, who's been with us for quite some time, is he's in the background process with Chula Vista Police Department to reunite with his fiance. We've got 1 sergeant that applied for Yuba County Sheriff's Department. We've got 1 dispatcher that is on maternity leave, Brittany Melchor. She's going to be having her 3rd beloved baby tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning at Rideout Hospital. So she's going to be out until the first week of October. And then one of our dispatchers put in for a recruitment position with Clusa PD quite some time ago, and she got accepted to the academy with them. So her last day with us will be on the 16th of June, and she's going to pursue a police officer career instead of dispatching. Let's see here. Because of, some of our officers are reaching their vacation max levels, and I do appreciate allowing the cash out portion, because the fact that being limited on personnel and them not being able to take vacation at this current time, because we're pulling detectives from that caseload you currently saw. We're pulling lieutenants from their normal duties, and they're buried to come out and help cover patrol as well. I've covered some patrol shifts, so that just makes it nice, but that's just kind of where our staffing is right now. And we do have 2 officers that are in background right now that it's not currently on this list, that I was able to recruit from the college. So one of those backgrounds got turned in today, so we'll know more here this week. We had 2 officers that were on light duty for injuries for just a little over 30 days, but they've been now cleared to come back to work. and potentially one of those is going to go back out here in the next 30 to 60 days to have a surgery, from what I was told late this afternoon. But getting back up to Emily, the top photo, so we're, our parking enforcement officer, Jonathan Corrales, we're actually sponsoring him through the part-time academy at Yuba Community College. First time we've done this. It starts in July. That's a 11-month program that goes part-time. So we're going to be sponsoring him with some small items to be able to attend that academy, so we can plan for the future of our department and start getting our hooks in these youngsters now and putting them through that training, and hopefully they're going to have some loyalty. And you know, we do require a 3-year retention after the sponsorship, so we're excited about that. And then Cadet Collier starts July 1st as a police recruit, and she'll be attending the full-time police academy at Butte College. First time we've sponsored somebody through that as well. And she'll graduate hopefully in December, and then she'll start her FTO program and end it hopefully in May of 2020, and you'll see her go from a gray uniform and feeding a baby to a black uniform chasing bad guys. So Jim stated earlier about his staff, and so did everybody else. I've got a tremendous staff. Yes, I have the largest budget and I have the most staff, but I'll tell you what, I've got the greatest staff in the world. They work hard every day. They love coming to work, smiles on their face. They love working for the city, and it's a pleasure to work with all of them. They're all working double time, putting in lots and lots of hours, and they get a lot of phone calls from me late at night, brainstorming and trying to figure out things, and so I just can't appreciate them enough for what they do for me. So that's all I got.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Boy,
No comments tonight.
Councilmember Simmons?
I got a couple. Is the
Yes.
restroom open in Riverfront Park?
Yeah, it should be open Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday?
Yeah, and on the weekend.
Thank you. Also, I was looking at the budget, and I didn't see the clerk's budget in any place in any of the budget items. Is there a reason for that?
City clerk's budget is now part of the city manager's office.
I understand that, but I didn't see where the city clerk's budget is XXX, half-time, third time, fourth time, or whatever. She's not a full-time employee under you. She's a part-time employee under your auspices. I mean that by her duty as a clerk.
Her duties as a city clerk are part-time, and as the council may recall last
I
year.
do.
Okay, we changed the title to assistant to the city manager / city clerk, so it made sense to bring the position into the city manager's office, since the full-time job is the assistant to the city manager, and the part-time job is the city clerk with a stipend to the council.
I guess what I was looking for was her percentage of time that she's spending as a clerk versus spending time as your assistant. Because that was a ratio, 25, 75, whatever it was.
I don't
You don't
remember
have to answer that now.
applying a rate. We can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Also, I mentioned earlier about the parking tickets that are being written in Riverfront Park, and I was under the impression I screwed up, I didn't write that in the ordinance. But I think some of that money under the new Parks and Recreation Plan that talked about generating revenue for the Riverfront Park, Beckworth Riverfront Park area, and that was one of the ways we could generate more revenue is share part of that parking tickets. And I think that's all going into parking now under sheriff and the cops or whoever. But I think a percentage of that should go into Riverfront Park, because that's where it's being generated. Now, a person could argue that parking downtown is being generated downtown also, but it doesn't have the need that the Riverfront Park has and parking plan, as well as the Parks and Recreation Plan. So I'd like to have some ideas on that. Maybe we could kick that. You guys could kick that around in your leadership meetings as to how much you'd like to donate to Riverfront Park. I'd settle for 35%.
Yeah. I think we need to come up with a budget for
That's
the
what we're
Riverfront
doing.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
So something to share with the council and the staff. A couple months ago when I had something called No Spare Time, I was approached by a couple members from the county supervisors and Yuba City council members wanted to potentially do a joint fireworks show on July 4th. And at that time, I said, awesome idea, but I didn't have any time to really work on it. So I found a little bit of spare time in the past week or so, and ironically, Yuba City was already working on a potential project that he called me that same day, actually, when I started working on this. And they have an idea of possibly sharing the cost of a fireworks show with the City of Marysville and Yuba City. The caveat is, with the research we've done on the past couple days, I briefly had a conversation with Chief Sachs, who was the acting city manager last week, and a brief conversation with Ron Carlin, about this, and no plan has come up of yet, but the biggest issue is because we're so far behind the curve that we have to find a licensed shooter, which we just did today, that can do the job, but then we need to find out, see if there's any product available left, because most of the products would have been earmarked for all these shows and so forth. But it sounded pretty good, like we might be able to make something happen. It's still on the planning stages, very early. I have to make a budget to kind of figure out what it's going to cost and what the share would be, as well as what it also might put with fire department, police department personnel need to be actually staffed that night. So that idea needs to happen. So now that got this thing called spare time that just got sucked up on this project, I'll be talking with the city staff and city manager and so forth on the possibilities of making this happen and keep you guys all well informed. If we can't make a decision within the next 2 weeks, it's a no-go for this year. So that's kind of what I have gotten thus far. But it is a really interesting idea. For those of you guys who remember, the show was a great thing. For those of you guys who also know, since the show was lost, I swear that the illegal fireworks has increased dramatically on July 4th. And I remember being on the job and almost running out of fuel in my apparatus just chasing down complaints. So hopefully, if we can kind of get a very well-sanctioned, safe, and beneficial show for both cities, that would be good. We do have a couple options on locations, one being potentially at the top of the number 5 bridge, and we're working with Yuba City PD and Caltrans and that contractor to see if we can make that happen. And then we do have a plan B, but all these are just planning stages. We still have to make sure that we can get product. Shooter was a problem, product's the next problem, and then if we can get those items done, then a plan that will be presented and go from there.
Might get you a statue.
A what?
Statue for that. People have been wanting 4th of July event for a while, man.
What squat? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I want to just say, just congratulate everybody, all the staff, because tonight, every person was highlighted and complimented, and Brant first for the bonds, and Marty for the negotiations, and Jim for the parks, and Ron, weed abatement. I've noticed that in town. That's awesome. And Chris Cruz and all the other things that you guys are doing, even enforcement. They were telling me that business people are saying they've noticed an improvement in their experience downtown. And business owners are talking about their great experience working with community development services. So just kudos to everybody. Great job. And you are on fire. We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm excited. Excited, Jennifer, about a beautiful budget. I didn't want to leave you out, but beautiful job. You're doing excellent work. And so I'm really glad you're in that position. So, so all of that. I did go to the parade, the Farm Bureau parade. I represented us over there, and it was a really cute little parade. But anyway, it was fun to be part of their 100-year celebration. And you know what? It was really great about it was seeing this. Our community is really a farming community we live in, and we don't, living in the city, I don't think I'm always aware of that so much. But there, I was very aware of it. Tractors, oil companies, all those kind of trucks. I rode in a big red truck. So it really made me think about and appreciate even more. Yes, we are definitely in the farming community. So anyway, that was good. And wanted to say what a great Gold Sox experience we had. at the opening game, and I heard there was a great turnout on Saturday night as well. I didn't go to that game, but anyway, great things are happening here, and everybody for doing your part to make it great.
Thank you,
Mr.
Vice
Mayor,
Mayor. Yes?
I lied.
You lied?
I lied.
All right.
One quick question, I'm not sure if there's the appropriate time, but I was approached about something at Plumas Lake Golf Course. Is there any update on that, or is that something we should talk about at another time?
It's a closed session item that will be coming back to the council at the next council meeting.
Okay. And then she just reminded me of the fact that Music in the Park was maybe the biggest one we've ever had.
Awesome.
On our opening night. We had over 200 people there. And so it was a very successful first night. Standing room only. It was good.
Good job.
Of course, our band was playing, so we're gonna take the credit for the draw, but. You should.
I think we've had some really heavy-duty meetings the last, I don't know, 3 months, right? And we still kept it together, and I think things are moving. Budget's a little scary, but in many ways, this is what happens when you have a little bit of dollars to kind of fix some of the things you haven't fixed in a really long time. Let's continue supporting our local business owners. I think that's key for us to be successful in the long term. That's who brings the cheddar. If they are successful, the city's going to be successful. Let's make sure that we help them any way we can. And let's be inviting to new investment. And the planning is going to help us out to do a lot of that. I'm okay with having consultants because we don't have to pay for health benefits or retirement costs, and they can do a job that needs to be done once, and they don't have they don't have to stay around in the office and not working on other things, and it's just very dedicated projects that they're working on. So I think working with consultants till we actually get to a point where we can actually have full staff. I do feel concerned. I am concerned about not being able to compete with other cities in our state. Okay, there are no reportable actions. Staff have been given direction. I would like to adjourn to a regular meeting, City Council, June 18, 2019, at 6 p.m.